playoffs have begun.
It's time. The best crowd in esports. Make some noise. They're running on me. One minute as we get ready for game number one.
Look at the bodies. It's a graveyard down here.
Can he get the double? Yes, he does. Going for the triple kill to kick off the ALGS playoffs in London.
He's going to be hitting some big
Oh
shots.
my goodness, the damage.
The Bravers are finally landing.
Guard is going to win this game.
Ascend will pick up the win.
Oh, he was like, he punches him.
Are you kidding me?
He's on main. It should work out. Peekaboo. Let's go to the Kramer. He's going to go in and finish off the damage as well.
Setting a world record.
23 kills. $1 million is on the line today. It is a shootout.
I'm going to move forward.
To become the champions here in London.
Money. You want the money?
You get the damage. Here it comes. TSM up in the skies. House goes down for the house. London belongs to TSM.
Everyone, and welcome back to North American preseason qualifiers. My name is Dia, and I am joined by a very stylish, if I do say so myself, Spider Tiff. So Spider Tiff, welcome to the broadcast. I know you had a blast on EMEA this morning, but the night is still young.
The night is still young, even if it is starting to get past my bedtime. I feel like a grandma at this point, but no, for real. We had such a fun time in EMEA this morning, and I can't wait to see what action will be held here in North America. Last week, yeah, it was crazy. There were so many talented teams that, you know, anyone could have took it. And then next thing you know, Elevate Gaming, they just really put it together. And it's good to see Zach back in Pro League.
And the nice thing is that we've got some challengers, shall we say, from last week rejoining us. But before we get into the teams that are popping in today, let's take a look at what is a preseason qualifier. Maybe you've just heard of this. I mean, it is only the second one after all. We started last week. We've got one this week. We've got another two in the weeks to come. And this is all to set up for the incoming Pro League. Preseason qualifiers are the ways that teams that perhaps haven't been invited to Pro League can, you guessed it, qualify their way into Pro League. So, Tiff, there are a couple ways to do that. Why don't you break them down?
Yeah, definitely. To go over those preseason qualifiers, you kick things off. There's 4 different weeks of preseason qualifiers. And throughout those different weeks, one team for each week will advance on immediately with that ticket to Pro League should they reign supreme and end up at the top of the leaderboard after our 6-game series. As you can see here, we'll have 20 teams vying in this finals lobbies, going through that 6-game series, and they'll be earning points throughout eliminations and placement points. Now, let's say, hey, well, I got 2nd place here this week. What does that mean for me? Well, GG's, you don't get that auto ticket to Pro League, but you can work and be consistent throughout the 4 weeks of preseason qualifiers and hopefully get enough points throughout your journey to secure the 4 remaining spots that can be met through the cumulative score points. So that's going to be the biggest question here. And I know we talk about the consistency a lot. When we look at the lobby later, we'll kind of dabble on and who's going to be some of our teams that we witnessed in week number 1 versus, well, who's new here today?
Now, you did allude to the way that teams can accumulate points, and it's important to note that the points that you get during the game are not equivalent to Challenger Circuit points, which is a whole other thing. You can find the ALGS rulebook, you can look them up. Mostly what matters is that you show up here over and over and over. For the purposes of today, for these 6 games, this is the point system you want to be looking at. Again, if you've been around Apex for a while, this is something you're going to be familiar with. 12 points for a win, we descend down to getting nothing if you place below 15th, but of course, you can always pick up kills, as you stated earlier. We'll also be playing on the 2 biggest competitive maps, and at least at the ALG's level, only competitive maps, Stormpoint and World's Edge, and we'll be alternating those every 3 games. There are only 6, so we'll do the first 3 on Stormpoint, and then the last 3 on World's Edge. It's not going to be too complicated, but notably, it is a difference from EMEA this morning, where we started on World's Edge.
Yeah, that's so fun because we were kind of wondering ourselves. It's like, wait, why are we starting on Storm Point today when EMEA started on World's Edge this morning? Well, we alternate by the regions. So for the teams that feel a little more comfortable on Storm Point, maybe like Passion earlier this morning, if you caught their back-to-back wins on EMEA, it was quite dominating performance. They almost broke 100 points. So here, if you start strong in Storm Point, you carry that momentum through World's Edge, well, easy. Then you're going to be at the top of the leaderboard and you'll have that Pro League ticket. Not work on those preseason qualifier points and start getting your cumulatives. A lot of people ask, they're like, hey, but how do these points work? Well, those points are divided out between each teammate. So once those roster changes happen, I'll just, you know what? Check the rule book, check Apex Wikipedia, follow the points.
Yeah, yeah. We're all like,
We
seriously,
don't do math
seriously,
here.
check the rulebook. Yeah, this is not. It's crazy. But before we get into the game, we've got to introduce who the games are going to be all about today. The teams that have made it through this very long weekend, as you've got to fight through a lot of teams in order to get here, and made it to the finals lobby. Some teams actually making it through again. We've got, I count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8,
Nine.
9 teams. So just under half of the squads that you see on your screen, we actually saw last week as well. The other 11 new entrants to the finals.
Yeah, which is a little bit different than the EMEA lobby this morning. We had 12 reoccurring teams that appeared in the week one finals. So a little bit less here in North America. But where things are going to get a little interesting is if you look to who holds the most points thus far. Los Licks, Oblivion, Drop In Gaming, TSMX, those names are actually not going to be in the finals lobby for week two, which will allow a huge shakeup if you, per se, don't end up getting that auto qual win today. You will be able to at least jump up the leaderboard. But for some of those recurring teams that should have that boon, it's going to be Evolution. Two, Chatham is Prime, Pen 5, Nine Lives, LBJ, Purple Slushy, Boys, and Hanging Around. And a lot of people have been keeping their eye on Chaotic & Co., a new venture into the preseason qualifiers here for North America.
Yeah, GKS have looked fantastic during the initial rounds, especially this weekend. They've been clicking quite well, and I spoke to Sleepy Panda earlier, wondering what brought him out of retirement again. But with the roster having performed so well, he's actually swapped inputs and is feeling like he's jiving with this squad as it is. Sorcerer, of course, at the lead. Other teams to look out for include Nine Lies, who took second last week, just under E8, and I mean just, almost making it to Pro League by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, you talk about that game 6 performance. It was so incredible from Nine Lives. They got that win and I believe broke either 15 or 16 eliminations that game. So just missing out towards Elevate Gaming. Elevate Gaming, they knew exactly what they had to do. Consistent and just get through it. Regardless who will reign supreme today, I'm looking through the list. Hey, Tripods, a new name for this week. Nick Merckx, Deeds, and Gent. People always talk about this roster, most likely because obviously Nick Merckx, but Deeds and Gent also incredibly talented. Curious to see how they perform today. But since they were kind of missing from week one, this needs to be a strong week for them, and they need to remain consistent throughout the remainder of the preseason qualifiers.
It does. You'd expect a top 3 from this roster at the very least. We've talked a little bit about the, let's say, teams that came from one side of the lobby, from one side of the semis. On the other side of that, we've got 2 teams that I definitely want to call out. You've already mentioned Tripods, but Donut Shop and Pen 5. Pen 5 making a reappearance in the finals, and Donut Shop, at least in this preseason, making their first appearance. But Donut Shop were a terror of North American Challenger Circuit in Year 3 Split 2. And they were the ones innovating the comps like, I think it was Gibraltar, Valkyrie, Rampart at the time, especially on Storm Point, changing the way that people saw the game and how to actually maneuver yourself into winning positions in Challenger Circuit in Tier 2 competitions. So keep your eyes on Donut Shop, and of course, as we said, Pen 5. The game's just about ready, so let's go ahead and pop on over to Storm Point as we start dropping in for game number 1.
Well, as we go through character select, Dia, you alluded to some interesting legend compositions that could come from Donut Shop. So my eyes are going to be that way. In EMEA this morning, we actually had a good chunk of Revenants that were mixed in, as well as Conduit. Last week on NA, I believe we only had 2 or 3 teams electing to utilize the Conduit. But for right now, I'm just seeing a lot of what has been tried and true. Bangalore, Cat, Horizon, Bangalore Blood Cat, just different thresholds around that Bang Cat mix.
And it's no surprise that it shouldn't be to anybody, especially if you've been tuning into things like scrims and, of course, the rounds leading up to this. Bangalore, incredibly valuable, as you pointed out, Horizon as well. Both of these legends, despite receiving nerfs moving into this season, have kept themselves as complete mainstays on the ALGS stage, and I'm not expecting them to move anywhere. Catalyst, of course, another one who can be put up alongside them, is your premier composition. Just being so valuable with what they're individually able to give to a team. Catalyst and Bangalore both providing some forms of cover. Catalyst with a little bit more, even being able to bunker up inside of buildings more effectively. And of course, Horizon's ability to start team fights. We are starting to drop down onto the map. And since we've got the map up, anybody who's tuning in this week, we've got a new present for you. If you type !map in the chat, you can actually follow along on the minimap that has its own stream put on by Versus that certainly helps me keep track of all the action that's going on around the map.
Yeah, it's so viable. But as you can see, our teams are making their way in. Looks to be like we're going to have that coveted contest here at Cenote, most notably Tripods. When they were in Pro League, were consistently contesting in Cenote, whether it was against Complexity or whoever. But regardless, these two teams are going to not necessarily land directly on top of each other, so it could be a little bit elongated here, or maybe they're going to prioritize getting weapons before engaging. And as you can see, Tripods grabbing that R9 3030, taking to that high ground, and Nick Merckx notably on the Bloodhound, which gives him the ability to kind of gather that information early on.
Especially when you are fighting 3v3s before you've got great loot. Information is everything. On the other side of this, though, it is a quick dip out. The boys don't want to fight too early on. They are another one of our squads that is appearing once more after finishing 17th last week. Perhaps didn't get the performance in the finals that they were looking for and don't want to take risks this early into the game and perhaps run that same probability of being on the lower end of the leaderboard again.
Yeah, it's respectable. You don't want to go out early on, but I mean, boys finding those really nice shields early on. We saw a relatively central zone we were initially flying in, and my biggest concern would be the fact that we have GKS and Nine Lives Esport simultaneously landing, one at Zeus and one at Lightning Rod. So relatively close to each other. So I can imagine on these Storm Point games, they'll potentially be running into each other depending on how long they take to loot their respective POIs. So that's something to keep in mind on.
Evolution as well, fortunate in not being contested at Mill, will now have their own, I'll say, easier time of it, at least coming into this week, not having to deal with a fight-off drop that did go one way then the other, netting them a couple of low-scoring games. Team Smiley, certainly a squad that I think a lot of people will be familiar with, are making their first appearance in the finals, but I think it's an expected one, especially with Rogue at the helm and Gambit right there to back them up. Gambit, very terrifying. I've seen a lot of squads with Gambit on them as they've been jumping around a little while, but most of you will probably recall them actually playing as Team Smiley in, I believe it was Split 1 of Year 3.
Definitely was that, but as we kind of get our good overarching shots, we do have that relatively central zone, so a lot of our teams are going to be making their ways kind of on that rotational area. You got Serial Cat down there by the supply bins, and boys finally finding a little bit of engagements over here against Smoke Break, but they've already expended the Dark Veil. Gravlift going to go out, kind of also like a distraction, maybe to bait them out. They're not necessarily going to take it going forward, but even Stomp's here on Smoke Break. We've seen him former in Pro League as well.
Destruction of a drone has ETH starting to push up. Beast of the Hunt does expire, but Smoke Break get high ground. Perhaps not really what they were looking for. Instead, looking for the kills, and the kills are evading them. Some squads getting quite aggressive early on. Boys, certainly having walked up to Mill this quickly, should be geared up for a fight, and that it looks like they are, with the Digi already in the hands of Vaki.
Vaki just looking for a good opening here, biding their time, waiting for the peek. A nice little heady there, able to deal a good chunk of damage. And with the Digi threat in the hands of a Bangalore, what could you ask? I mean, name a better duo at that point.
Especially this early into the game, and Digis have become so much less common that grabbing one this quickly can shift a fight, and already in fact has shifted a fight, with boys able to take control of the high ground, knowing that on the other side there is no safety in being able to just launch a smoke at your feet and dip and dive. Boys' height isn't going to be affected by the rolling thunder either, but with both teams still poking at each other bit by bit in mill, they are attracting what could be a third party in the area.
That's where you have to really start worrying about it, because who lands close to the mill, who is kind of rearing for a fight? Well, Tripods landing some Note Cave, knowing that there's a central zone, could look to engage upon this. But boys here, Forelli going a little bit low, and Dark's taking a good chunk of damage. Meanwhile, not able to do something about this. It's going to be Urice on the other hand from Evolution, just really throwing down. Voodoo and Urice, though, Reese, last alive, they were able to get the wipe, but is there that third party that you were mentioning? Because they need to hit the reset, and this is where we were seeing Conduit being so vital early on for those third party resets, and that's not in play here.
You called out Tripods, and here they come. Having what was essentially a 2v3, I don't think the second reset went off for Evolution. Tripods should be able to finish at least one kill and grab a little bit of extra loot, as well as, importantly, the crafter that's around here. Nice knock onto Yasto from Gent. Single fire 30-30, putting in work, and as Nick Merckx falls, I hope that's not a finish. Hitting for Flesh on a horizon. It is, in fact, going to be a 2 versus 2 now. Gent needing to pop a syringe before he goes down to the ring. Deeds hits a quick shield swap. Perhaps Thirst, perhaps more shield swaps are called for. Because right now, Evolution are sticking around for the fight.
Yeah, this is actually turning into a rather interesting event here for the Tripods, right? They were looking for that ease of a third-party action, but look who has come to play. We have yet another squad extending out of the zone to go check in at what is going on at the mill, right? Evolution will fall to the ring, and unfortunately enough, now we got to keep our eyes on Tripod, because they're approaching this rather nonchalantly, right? And Deej just kind of dips out the back. We pull up the map feed. You can see what is going on over here at the mill. Yeah, there's a team still over at Barometer trying to take an engagement against Vaguk. 9 Lives making their ways down from Lightning Rod. GKS elected to take the wall, kind of make their way through towards Cascades on a different path. So I was worried if they would run into each other. It doesn't seem that they will.
Now this zone does seem to be pulling us a little bit further south. We're likely to go over towards Ceto Station, which is, of course, a big reason why you see so many people packed in there. At this point, Checkpoint is essentially excluded from an end game, and you will see the teams that are in Checkpoint opting to play a little bit more edge, as they, by necessity, may even have to negative rotate through zone to find an uncontested way into the next ring, into future rounds. GKS make their way in from the north, and importantly, already have a read on the upcoming zone. A big advantage when it comes to finding a safe position. Oh my god.
Yeah, a safe position and some early damage is going to be really nice for them, especially when they're kind of overlooking and relatively hidden by this tree. You find the knock, you find the thirst, and that's an easy KP for Chaotic. But a lot of people have been talking about GKS kind of running through the prior lobbies. They came from semifinal 1, and they won it, right? They had 2 wins overarching. They were able to win on World's Edge. They were able to win on Stormpoint, showing that they can do both. Plus, Chaotic has a plenty of pro league experience. Saucer has a lot of competitive experience as well. So partnered with Sleepy Panda, it just seems like a good fit for them. I'm curious to see how they perform in the finals lobby, given their performance throughout the prior lobbies, but things always change in the finals.
I gotta say, how poetic would it be as well to have Chaotic, formerly of E8, qualify the week after E8? It would certainly say a lot about the, we'll call it, graduates of last year's roster. Quick mobile respawn beacon is coming in over in the corner to try and recover from the, we'll say, chaos that Chaotic threw into the equation. Should go off relatively well, especially with the new respawn mechanics. GKS are moving up to punish this. See if they can find a little bit more damage. Their Evos are already in a great place. They don't have to worry about anything. But if they can take a fight, you bet they will.
Look, at this point, we already know what happened to the last person who got on the rooftop that Chaotic saw, and he was able to immediately throw down just north of 100 damage with just mere seconds as soon as that player just peeks up. Now we're potentially getting a Kraber in play here for GKS. I mean, things could be moving their way.
Would be really nice for them. especially when you're trying to pick fights on the edge. A Kraber, a very quick and unexpected knock, can mean so many more kills for you in the long run, because after you knock one, they fall like dominoes, do they? Gucky starting to move their way out of Jurassic and up to the north. Not a great rotation by any means, but importantly, running Crypto. Not many squads have chosen to do this, but especially in those smoky endgame scenarios where you do not have digis, Crypto's drone can give you a lot of consistent information, especially when there are too many squads for the drone to be focused.
That is a very interesting choice here, but hey, honestly, if you're the only crypto in the lobby, it can single you out. You'll immediately know who they are, but Smoke Break running into some rather tough issues here. We've already got a knock on to ETH, and tripods have fallen elsewhere, but Smoke Break right outside the storm, trying to keep the dream alive, and we are able to get the full there, looking for an armor swap, but it's just not going to be enough. You are surrounded, and another team, Cobra, Goon Off the Perk, and Carry On, are making their way into Gatekeep and see kind of what this third-party action is going to look like.
It was a really nice call from Stomps, however, even knowing that the team was going to die, to turn around and focus on getting the thirst may not have been the play that would win them the game, but securing even 1 point at this stage of the game keeps you from having a 0 for your first round in the preseason qualifiers. So good heads up move from Stomps. It is going to make the life of LBJ a little bit more difficult as they flee into the zone behind them. But speaking of difficult, Team Smiley certainly don't have it easy.
Cruisin is in disengage modes, that is for sure. They were over at checkpoint and things were just not going their way, and now we have a full-on brawl here. Looks to be on board with Donut Shop. We were talking about them a little bit prior to the broadcast, and with J-Trips already down, a good utilization of the cat wall, the Dark Veil to come in, the reinforcement of the door to try and potentially get that res on J-Chips, but it's not necessarily going through. You've got black holes coming your way, incoming ordinances, and you're just trying to maintain some semblance of stability here.
Catalyst wall gonna go down soon, leaving Donut Shop coverless on the outskirts of this building. They're unable to get the res so far. Kraber still got 1 bullet in the chamber. Swing around, has Young Wavy whiffing, and unfortunately with no damage left, no health left. Donut Shop are corralled and taken down 1 by 1. Dell gonna do what they can, but not gonna work. Donut Shop falls, and Purple Slushy fall alongside them elsewhere on the map.
Hanging around at a really well-timed third party, what we witnessed on Smoke Break, but the fact that they've already made it over here and have just completely danced around Donut Shop and Purple Slushy, picking up some well-needed KP. That'll be a really great start for them. They're going to have at least 4, but Goon Off the Perk getting kind of peppered from afar across. But you can see immediately that Carry On and Cobra have just taken the fight to them, turning it around, smoking forward, having the digi threat, and able to just put so much pressure on them, almost punishing them for trying to even, how dare they shoot on Goon, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I'm actually gonna have to take a break for a second because my mouth's gonna be full of humble pie as I take a look at where this ring is pulling straight into checkpoint. And it's causing a lot of problems for everyone that was already piled up in Cedo. An extremely rare ring now is making this game almost impossible for hanging around, and as their squad expires, LBJ are still caught on the outside, unable to rotate through ring. A lose-lose-lose situation where your only hope is to pick up kills.
See, and that's tough, right? When the checkpoint zone kind of pulls down to those 3 clustered buildings to the south, then you can play these areas. But when it pulls up into checkpoint, you're right, it creates a lot of this chaos that we're witnessing here. And Oversleepers, man, they are just trying to figure out how they are going to make their move. JP goes down, the incoming ordinances, and yeah, Charmander, I mean, you are letting the flamethrower fly at this point. You get a KB, but you have to turn your attention to both sides, and it makes for just a little too much chaos.
Field swap not going to come through. 30 seconds on the ring close and running late. While they've picked up a few kills towards the south end of this zone, are likely coming up on the end of their game. There's a very small chance that they can evac their way to safety, but even right now, with the amount of loot that they have, time is not on their side, and other squads like Chatamus Prime, will be hoping to gatekeep squads exactly like Running Late, who are in a terrible spot having to come from low ground late with no setup, no information.
Doesn't matter. I mean, they're living up to their name at this point. Would you expect anything else? Their team is running late. They're not going to be dead center of zone at this point like Pen 5, but after witnessing Pen 5, Hambino and co, all of them in just preseason qualifier week 1, we knew that their zone calling capabilities were extraordinary and they were so consistent and they've set themselves up so well.
Called out squads like Nine Lives and GKS immediately as we enter the day, and that should come as no surprise taking a look at the position that Nine Lives currently holds. One of the few squads with access to the high ground. There is one team above them they've got to keep their eyes on, but just off to their north, GKS are right next door, and everybody getting into extremely and uncomfortably close quarters at this point. Running Late have made their way up from the low ground, not yet in zone, and Shadow's Prime are taking every possible angle, using these rampart walls to the fullest. Stuck in ring now, White Tom Cruise has descended for double O negative, hits the floor, and we're trading heavily as Shadow's Prime tries to knock out Running Late. Should be able to do so. Sheila was out, Rigo is low, the third party comes in, and both squads expire.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Chatamus Prime and Running Late as they are eliminated, but it's S2 who comes out on top, getting a chunk of eliminations throughout those engagements. Void having the Rolling Thunder available to them to bring into endgame and all of the resources that they've acquired throughout this. But turn your attention over here to Nine Lives. They did so well getting second place in week 1, but that's not going to get them that auto fall spot that they want. So dancing through the spiders here. Laser goes down. I don't know how Dynasty lasted as long as he did, but it's going to have to be a whoop. You have to fry here through your teammates' knockdown shields. We're just looking for that last bit of engagement. You see, you're hitting for flash, but you're only 60 HP yourself. So this is going to be rather interesting.
Can't take the rock at this point. Only 2 clips left in the R99. No time to waste ammo, and the battery doesn't go off. And a nice clutch comes in from the Denver Thuggets, a new entrant, and a warm welcome to our new finals contestants, having taken out a very scary squad who picked up second in last week's games. The zone's going to start to close in. Knight and Legatron up on high ground are going to have to consider their options because this won't stay in forever. Unleash, another new entrant into the preseason qualifier finals, are sat up top.
I was really impressed with Diamanic and them taking out 9 Lives. I know that I've seen them, I believe, under LTC, formerly playing with McLovin and co. But GKS, we were all wondering what they were going to do here in the finals lobbies. We were going to expect maybe a chaotic clinic I've seen across social media. Well, your last standing here for GKS in the top 5. That one elimination you acquired earlier with the 30-30. Here is the clinic time, and honestly, this could go crazy, right? You just go hit the grab lift and be like, you know what, I'm going to send it.
The really important thing as well is that GKS' last member is unspotted right next to S2. S2 can't really peek this, and it means that they are in that much more trouble. As if I'm going to pick one person to just utterly ruin your game as you try and go on a push, it is Chaotic, because he will one-clip one of your members. That's a promise.
You heard it here first. That's a promise. Dia speaking facts. Now we just have to see it come to fruition. Meanwhile, Pen 5 still up in the lobby, biding their time, and Unleash will have to jump off this high ground. It is only a matter of time. They can only stay here for approximately 30 seconds longer, and they have a good chunk of a way to go before they hit that final ring.
This will be one of the first squads focused down as well. Unleash. There's no need for really anyone who's already shooting at them to move faster than they do. As you said, they are one of those first teams. They've got to make smart use of things like Bangalore Smoke, perhaps even a gravity lift to quickly relocate themselves. And of course, once they hit the ground, Catalyst Wall can buy crucial seconds, but that's if they survive that long, especially with the brief miniature stuns that you take upon dropping down. They're going to go for it now. Ryzen manages to evade that nade, hits Legatron and Knight, almost taking them down. Both shields are gone, but the Catalyst Wall is up. Unleash lose Knight, but they still got 2 members.
Yeah, incoming Rolling Thunder. We're going to have to keep an eye on that, but hiding behind this Dark Veil. Yes, the frag incomes, but you're not going to be able to dodge it for too long. And yeah, Florzy throws out the black hole, but someone else is going to take the end of Denver Thuggets, and it's Pen 5 making a play, utilizing their own Dark Veil to get ever so closer, but you know who's lurking from afar as Unleash falls. There is still a Chaotic in this lobby.
They made their way all the way to third as well, perhaps even further. GKS do go down, but the points well and secured by Chaotic are going to do them good. S2 move in from the top of their own building, hoping to take down Pen 5 in a 3v2 situation. They should be able to. Hambino's done some amazing work, but against 3, what can you do? S2 take game 1.
Congratulations to S2. So poised to perfection there, biding their time in the end game and having good ring calls towards the end, because then they didn't really get mixed up in a little bit of that chaos that was ensuing throughout the other choke points. But Void, Kosh, and Carter, congratulations. Map 1 victory. That's going to be feeling good, especially when you came from that semifinals lobby 1 where you played against GKS and S2. So losing out to them there, maybe you get a little bit of retribution here early on.
A really smart capitalization from S2 to third party the south end of zone as well. From then on, not many teams were able to push them out of the rotations that they wanted like that to the top of the building that ultimately won them the game. But the timing to take on Shadowmus Prime and running late, even recognition that the south side of zone was a possibility for them to win the game from, is a really interesting one because it comes with a lot of risk and a lot of open territory. Let's go ahead and pull up the standings, see where S2 have found themselves after this initial game, because it's going to be a well-deserved first place. A 20-point game is good. It ain't insurmountable, though.
It definitely isn't. If you think back to the EMEA broadcast this morning, the players who won map number 1, they won with a 25-point game, and then their next game was a 4-point. So I'm looking to S2 for some semblance of consistency, but if you are going to take a map win, north of 20 points is where you want to be. But congratulations to Pen 5 in second place with 13 points. The tough part about getting into zone early and finding a solid position is the fact that you run the risk of maybe not acquiring a good chunk of eliminations throughout the entire early to mid game. Denver Thuggets, probably one of the best names I've ever heard, tying with that 9 points with GKS. Once again, Chaotic able to take to top 3, getting some well-needed eliminations early on, coupled with the placement points. Overall, not a bad showing.
No, not at all. A lot of these squads, of course, will be taking to Stormpoint. In fact, all of them will be taking to Stormpoint in just a few minutes, so we're going to take a quick break, grab some water, and then we'll see you back here for game number 2. We promised we'd be back for game 2, and as contractually stated in our brief verbal agreement, we're back, and it is going to be game number 2. Before we jump into it, let's take a look at the standings once more, because Spider Tiff, we talked about the top of the standings, but we haven't really talked about everything that came after it. What teams do have a little bit more pressure on them going into the next couple of rounds, and first and foremost on that list, I've got to be looking at 12th and 13th place. 9 Lives and Evolution. 9 Lives, of course, lots of expectations. Evolution got Mill. A lot of people got Mill.
A lot of people got Mill. Let's talk about that. You're right. Evolution not having that initial contest at the Mill. You'd think, oh, maybe they'll make it to mid game and have some success. Yeah, of course, every finals lobby is going to be different. Every week you're going to have to adapt to where teams are going, how teams are rotating. It is a game of adaptability, but what you're not expecting is to have teams kind of do negative rotates, push into the ring to essentially take a fight immediately after you get done. And that's kind of what Tripods did. Evolution were able to win that initial 3v3, but Tripods move in, and then even more teams decide to rotate out, and Tripods go down in the mix as well. So for teams that are maybe aware that that's the potential could happen, maybe Evolution won't hang out at the Mill any longer. That could have been kind of a result of having the central zone, but you're right. Anything could happen. 9 Lives in particular, only getting 3 points. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, they're a squad that I think did get a little confused as to how they wanted to approach the fight that we saw them go out in, and all credit where it is due to the Denver Thuggets who took them down. But 9 Lives definitely had a moment of, well, who do I actually support? Oh, both my teammates are dead, and ultimately are going to have to rethink their approach to the skirmishes that they are so good at finding. Speaking of teams, of course, that need to rethink things, boys as well, landing over in Cenote, didn't want to contest Cenote, did end up fighting at Mill, ended up getting a 0-point game. It's not the greatest start, but they've still got plenty of room to go, and the very fact that they've made it to the finals twice in a row can be considered a victory in and of itself, because not many teams make it to the finals twice in total. The fact that boys are here once more is already going to look really good for them in terms of the points at the end of the season. So take it on the chin and adapt for next game.
You heard it from Dia right there. Adapt for next game, because that's essentially what all of this needs to be. It's crazy because especially with every finals lobby being inherently different, it makes things tough, right? So if you have a rather lackluster map number 1, here's where you kind of get that chance to be like, all right, shake off the nerves, shake off that whatever it is that you're maybe just PG go next, because we can't be perfect, right? We can't be passion on Stormpoint and just go crazy at this point.
Ooh, north to south dropship. That's going to
I
be pretty
like it.
nice, especially for the teams that, as you talked about, do land very far north. 9 Lives and GKS both going to be getting first move on the map, although, taking a look a little closer at it, doesn't look like... No, 9 Lives do have ring. 9 Lives have ring, scan it, may it rest in peace, Thunderwatch.
Rest in peace, Thunderwatch. Lightning Rod just reigns supreme at this point. The changes on that northern side of the map have been really interesting, and that's why I was worried about GKS and 9 Lives consistently running into each other, because there is so less distance from Lightning Rod, Thunderwatch straight over to Zeus. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump away. An open field at that point.
Yeah, funny thing about this game as well, we saw this play out earlier with Mill having crafting. The fact that Cenote has crafting now actually may delay Tripods rotate a little bit longer, as they should be able to hang out there. They've got a big jump master diff though. Oh my god, they beat boys by a mile, and boys have to take a quick swerve off to the left. Not a good start for them at all, as by the time they make their way to the south, if they even do make their way to the south of Cenote, there's going to be no loot left for them.
At least you're able to land on multiple blue shields. That'll change the tide of things, but electing to keep that charge rifle over a flatline is certainly different, especially in a contest, but I respect it. Maybe you want to save the flatline for a teammate. Also, again, I respect that. And maybe Forelli's going to come grab that. But regardless, it's going to be a little interesting. And Tripods, they need to kind of start this off in a better footing than they did. And there it was. Grab that flatline. You save that for your teammate. You little legend.
Thanks, darling.
Boys going to slow play and I am curious whether they actually commit to the south, especially after the chunk that's just come through onto dark. The problem, especially with this start, is that rotating out of Cenote doesn't feel good, especially now that you're not doing it into spider caves. Millage is also not a great place to move. Barometer is taken, and you don't want to be walking up on high ground. Mill has better loot, and the boys cannot stay here because even if they don't want to fight, tripods do.
Yeah, tripods definitely do. Deeds and Gent are just probably itching to go at it, and Nick Merckx is going to give them all of the calls and information that they need to find success. But if they can maybe start this map off with this engagement actually going through at the hands of tripods, maybe it will delay any rotation. Maybe they won't actually third party up into Mill. You never know. It completely changed the tide because we have that, once again, that relatively central zone. It's not as quite up north as we had kind of witnessed, so a lot of teams might not find themselves in Cascade quite early.
Smoke's trading back and forth. One more smoke available for boys to cover their potential retreat or offense. Taking up on the ridge line. Boys are pretty split. This should be something that tripods recognize. Gent gets out angled for a second, but with Nick Merckx already on the push, it's a 2v1 in this northernmost building.
He's just trying to keep an angle. Incoming thermites are gonna miss, but Deeds as will connect, jumps down, looks towards the building, and immediately grabs that knock on the Varelli, but Vaki opens the door, had that gold light mag on an RE45, and completely finds success there. So Gent able to reassess, heal back up, but things are looking a little dire here for the tripods.
Big input issue for Deeds means that unfortunately what should have been a 1-for-0 turns into a 1-for-1. Nick Merckx wants to try and punish the res, but can't afford the potential that it's a fake down on the low ground, so it's just healing up, waiting for Gent to find a better angle, and all this time being given over to the boys to actually find their teammate, perhaps pick them up again, even finish off Deeds is massive.
Nick Merckx, though, this is going to be tough. He kind of needs to get with Gent and not get singled out in a little bit of 3v1. You did hear them initially bait that res. You see, able to grab a knock on a one, but does get traded out. Now it's going to be Gent with about 5 HP, a good smoke, retreating towards the inside in a 1v1 situation. Maybe some armor swaps, but likelihood of him actually having some shield cells, it's going to be dire. So grabbing that shield swap will be great. And as they try to pick back up their teammate, Gent picks out right the time.
Have just a little bit more ammo on Gent. This is running low, a situation for tripods that should never have come to pass. White shields are not going to last you for long. Res is impossible. And oh, they return the favor. How sweet! The extended fight in Cenote finally results in Evolution coming in and wiping both teams off the map.
If Evolution has one fan, I am one of them. I know, Dia, you as well. But, like, look, if you're going to have tripods immediately third-party and engagement at the mill, if you take too long in that 50-50, which is essentially what just happened between boys and tripods, well, you're right. That favor will get paid out. It's kind of like an eye for an eye, right?
It is, it is. Yeah, I would say even a bit more violent, especially when Evolution swoop in like that. But both teams had plenty of time, boys and tripods, to try and make the fight work in their favor. Sometimes you gotta take fate into your own hands. Icon attempting to do just that. Is over by Devastated Coast. We are getting one of our first fights of the game. Very few squads have fallen so far. Only the two that fell down in Cenote. Dan's does go low, but not Dan. Around the backside of the building, may be able to support Blake as a knockdown shield won't do you too much good from above. Finish comes in for Not Dan. That means shield swaps are available, and Icon should take this fight just as quickly as we saw Dan drop down from the roof.
We're just looking for our last member, and as you can see, Icon kind of doing a little bit of ring around the rosy. They do find them, and even though Not Dan does fall, Blake is there to get the trade. LBJ will fall, and 17 squads remain, and Icon are going to be relatively okay to hit this reset. And as soon as we see that, we get the beautiful scene of the evac tower going out in the way. That's actually going to be smoke break, and they look to land on the remnants of Icon.
Knowing that a fight has gone down up here, I like the proactive use of Horizon Ultimate. Shatters the door, allowing the Arc Star to instantly chunk for 50. This is already a much bigger advantage than Smoke Break may even know because of how scuffed the last fight was. Stomps takes a good angle. Reseal of the door is too late to keep ETH out, and the hatchet goes crazy as Icon fall like trees.
Really solid job here from Smoke Break to be able to take that isolated third-party engagement, pick up well-needed eliminations, and can now kind of focus on their path forward. You can see as we pull up that map, we are pulling, to the south. We're going to get a Stormcatcher potential ending. You can see a lot of teams electing like Chadamus Prime, Pen 5, to kind of play just below Stormcatcher, and usually we'll see teams kind of set up in those tunnels and kind of nestle up in there, but Pen 5 appear to be playing kind of that choke point, which is really good for the mid game if they're looking to find eliminations on people that are rotating in. Typically running late. Not actually running late this time, finding themselves where they need to be.
And Gucky, in their case, running late in their own sort of way, do need to cover a lot of ground, and importantly uphill ground, to even make it into this zone. Not a whole lot of mobility tools on their squad, but things like Catalyst and Bangalore are going to help out a lot if you do find yourself in a sticky situation. I want to shout out my lads on the Denver Thuggets, who have found themselves in a fantastic position as well, right outside of where we currently see Unleash, in this building just to the south between Unleash and Stormcatcher. Lots of zone endings are to be found around there, and the Denver Thuggets got there early.
I can't take Denver Thuggets seriously, but you say it so well. Incoming black hole towards Unleash. I can only imagine that GKS has been relatively silent throughout map number 2 thus far. They land in Zeus. They would hit a rotation that could potentially go this way towards that central zone. We saw them rotate through checkpoint. The likelihood of them being here and engaging with Unleash is a high probability.
Unleash seem to have taken the better end of this trade. They're not going to be able to interrupt this bat. Instead, Knight's going to get double swung. Surprised that goes as well for them as it does, but immediately after, the follow-up is deadly. With Knight down, Legatron has to take the front of the battle. Does do a lot of damage, but it isn't enough, and the reload is just too punishing. Last kill right ahead of them. Now comes the black hole. Not going to connect for any meaningful crowd control, but it's done its job. Unfortunately, that's all it's going to do, as Unleash go down to a third party. Donut Shop appear just in the nick of time to get their goods.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, we saw Chaotic essentially hit that zip line to the top, and Donut Shop push in record time. Now, they're going to look for any remnants of what we had kind of witnessed from that third party. They were able to clean up Unleashed, but where is Chaotic? Once again, losing out on Saucerer, losing out on the other third. So now you have that issue of, do I play my life once again? And that's not how you want to start out your first 2 games.
Yeah, now being essentially at top of Command Center, you've also got very few ways to rotate out. A lot of teams say, like the Denver Thuggets, I'm obsessed with saying the name, so you're going to hear it a lot today, are going to be waiting for exactly that drop down, whether you take the gravity cannon or not. Being Horizon, you have a bit of a better time, but Nine Lives, speaking of teams that are gatekeeping and looking at gravity cannons even, are going to be taking a look up at formerly, may it rest in peace, Thunderwatch.
I love that you're all about saying Denver Thuggets right now, because this morning I was forced to say Zephyr's E-Kittens like 100 times. They were constantly on the broadcast, getting all of the air time in, but the oversleepers hitting that rotation in, but just nestling in at the very furthermost northern area. Now, the issue with this is 9 Lives was previously occupying just on the outskirts of Thunderwatch, which means Oversleepers and 9 Lives are about to engage Charmander. We're going to have to evolve here and hit him with a Charmeleon action.
That's one of my favorite things about Nine Lives, though, is that they're so good at recognizing when they have an advantage. This slight high ground and run up to Oversleepers is unchallengeable, especially after Oversleepers land from on high. Nine Lives instantly jump on it, push Oversleepers down into a no-win situation, pick up a kill, and may even pick up a few more. Oversleepers should be one of our next squads to go out, but thank God they made 15th, because that it means that they at least get 1 point for their troubles.
Yeah, and immediately Nine Lives are running into issues. We had so many teams that were playing in this area, and kind of this trek between Stormcatcher and Thunderwatch. There are so many teams that end up trying to play here, but it's just not where you want to find yourself on the south side of this hill just yet. Now, Nine Lives, yes, you take that engagement with Oversleepers, and you have to decide, how are we going to approach this? You know there's going to be a team inside of Stormcatcher, if not multiple. There'll be teams playing underneath. They'll be in every choke point. So your track now further south needs to have all eyes on board, consistently scouting and putting pressure out.
Gotta run up the hill. We knew this was coming for many teams, but we'll see how it works for Pen 5 as they make their way up. Smoke break right ahead with Digis in hand as well. Make short work of them, and as good as Pen 5 are, that rotation is pretty tough, and I can't fault Smoke Break for taking them down as quickly as they did. Shadamus Prime trying to play gatekeep once again, even after last game where it did not quite go in their favor. This time, hold the south side of the zone, and Smoke Break turn their attention to them. Prowler in the hands of Serial Cat.
Yeah, and a lot of teams aren't necessarily going to want to extend out of Stormcatcher to third party on this. They're already there. They're going to capitalize and try to get through this engagement as quickly as possible. You can see Serial Cat pushing in. Black Hole was expended, but unfortunately too much pressure. Serial Cat 1 HP in a dream, able to get the shield bat off just in the nick of time, but now we have kind of that coveted situation where you're fighting hanging around at this point, and yeah, you're gonna fall, but we do have more teams that decide they want to get in on this. Smoke Break falls, S2 falls, and there is still a lone member of Purple Slushy down to the most farther area of the ring.
Hanging around, come in, and their third party nets them not just 10th place, but an additional kill and all of the loot that was left behind. Pluto, thinking about getting involved, but I think now deciding that's not the move is going to carry on the legacy of Purple Slushy for as long as they possibly can, because this next zone for both teams, hanging around, and of course the last member of Purple Slushy, not a great rotate. The nice thing is that hanging around have this little corridor to play, but even their exit from this will be fraught with trouble.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough. You're going to have to rely on potentially a Dark Veil or even Bangalore Smokes, and look for the teams that are already over towards that right-hand village of Stormcatcher. But Nine Lives have found themselves in a rather dire situation. Just you look away for 2 seconds and you come back in. Your Reese and Evolution has completely annihilated Nine Lives, and Dynasty, last standing, has to find some kind of way to put pressure back onto Evolution, but it's not gonna happen. Yeah, Voodoo looking to hit that instant res quickly while Yazto kind of just oversees everyone around.
That's probably the fastest we've seen Nine Lives be dismantled by another squad, and all credit to Evolution for making it happen. Euris was tap dancing, he was flying on the rocks like a goat up above them, and really crazy angle that he was able to find to take down Evolution as quickly as they did. Team Smiley now turn their eyes onto Evolution, who do still have a truck and some rocks to play. Shouldn't mean they go down just yet. A nice snipe on the drone from Yazto will keep the team ever safer. Evolution, with a nice play, should be looking for a way to either take the building ahead of them and clear that, or move their way out to the eastern side of the ring and play for this outer wall that is often a game-winning position.
I'd imagine that someone is already over there trying to make that play. Maybe they had an early read on it and saying, hey, you know, I don't want to hedge my bets. I'm not going Stormcatcher. I'm going to go straight out towards the right. And now Evolution heading up the grav lift, but Yasto is going to walk up the ramp. We're looking to see, hey, is there someone inside? The likelihood of it is they are. They see it's reinforced. They get some shots out, but Urice takes more damage than Yasto was able to deal, but this just solidifies them and saying, hey, we are here. We have 5 KP for Evolution thus far, and so far, not bad.
And even after the counter swing, Evolution don't really take any damage. The big problem for them is that they've only got a limited amount of time to decide how they want to do this. They weren't able to take the roof off of Gravity Lift. Team in the building, Team Smiley is looking straight at them, but Team Smiley also has concerns of their own. Next zone is very punishing. We talked about this outer wall. Take a look at who's there. Gucky playing out to the east. Fantastic position to take this game if they play their cards right.
Oh, but speaking of cards, we got Voodoo over here going crazy for Evolution, putting out so much damage, able to barrel in through that reinforced door, and just like that, they grabbed 2 members. We're looking for the last, and just like that. You said the last fight from Evolution was incredibly quick. I mean, yes, the first initial push didn't work out, but this second one was efficient.
Yeah, real clean play, and a big mistake from Smiley on the inside, throwing out a Horizon ult that destroyed their own door. Not going to work out for them this time around. As Evolution go on the push against Gucky, they're going to find themselves in another critical 3v3, one that could determine the fate of this game.
Rigo over here just trying to stay alive, wingman in hand. At this point, when you have 6 squads left, it's like just try to hold on at least until top 3, because both of your teammates are down, Dark Veils are out, and there's a lot of chaos that's kind of breaking out above you. But just like that, immediately someone peeks and you get shot from 5 different angles. Running late will be eliminated. Hanging around, who's been kind of notorious for third partying so far today, eliminated. And now Denver Thuggets, Dia.
My Thuggets!
Your Thuggets!
You still have a numbers advantage. Dan Mantic clutches up for the squad. Smoke on the other side as Evolution attempts to move in for the third party. Donut Shop are down. Gucky are on the other side. This fight has become everyone's problem, and the Denver Thuggets make a delicious sandwich. With Gucky having gone down, numbers advantage belongs to Evolution. Vermilion doesn't have the health to stand out by this rock. There's no cover. There's no place to hide. Evolution take game 2.
With dominating fashion. I know there's a lot of Urice fans out there that were waiting to see Urice kind of make that play back into Apex competitive, but coupled with Voodoo and Yasto, it's like things have finally worked out for them. They're not contested at Mill. They turned tides around from that map number 1, and they took control of that situation. First starting out with third-partying tripods this time in Cenote Cave, and it's like from that initial engagement, Dia, they kept that momentum forward, took the win, and overall, I'm quite impressed.
It was a very poetic game, if you think about it, as a response, as an antithesis to the first game of the day. The fact that they came into Cenote, took out their rivals from the previous round, and then made their way over to Stormcatcher and cleaned house, taking out some of the best fighting teams that we've got. I'm thinking specifically of 9 Lives here, but then transitioning that into Smiley as well. They just kept rolling, and the confidence clearly unshaken for Evolution definitely gives me a lot to be impressed with, and I want to see exactly by how much I have to be impressed, because the leaderboards are ready, and I wasn't counting how many kills it was, but I know it was a lot for Evolution.
Look, that's what they needed to do. Top of the leaderboard. In map number 1, they came in with 3 points, so a 24-point map 2 game will unseat 2 at the top, and S2 only had a 1-point game for themselves, but it's the Denver Thuggets who had an 11-point game in map number 2 to get them inside the top 3. Now, Pen 5 have been relatively consistent in making good zone calls, but now we need to couple that with some eliminations, and I think they'll find themselves relatively consistent. And should they not take, the overall on the day at the end of it, they're acquiring that well-needed preseason qualifier points and remaining consistent that way.
4 more rolls of the dice for Pen 5. See if they can find the 16-kill game, the likes of which 9 Lives have found before them. We've talked about the top of the bracket, and we'll talk about the rest of it once we come back from a very quick break to prepare for game number 3. After having the steak in a plastic get bag for my cat 3 times today, it's time we do something else for the third time, Tiff. It's time for us to prepare for our third game on Stormpoint, and interestingly enough, our last game on Stormpoint of the day. Before we do, we promised you some more leaderboard action, so let's bring it up, because as much as the teams at the top, Evolution and S2, have made their way there with some wins, we got some other teams to call on, to give energy to as we prepare to head in to Game 3.
Give me your energy. No, but for real, GKS, they're outside the top 5, but I want to highlight them solely for the fact that they're not necessarily bad fighting teams. They just keep running into engagements where it leaves them with just chaotic left standing. Third party situations, whatever it is, they're just not able to kind of hit that regain after committing to an engagement. Now, they find themselves with 13 points despite all of that. So things can easily be turned around for them. But Donut Shop, Nine Lives in particular, getting second in week number 1. I'm kind of looking to them to maybe turn some things around in this latter half of the series, or kind of the mid. We're not even through it yet. This is map number 3. Our
We're
last
like
map of
almost
Stormpoint.
at the latter half. Like in
How?
30 minutes, we'll be able to say that it's the latter half. So
Like how? How have we finished 2 games already though? It's flying.
People say it all the time. My grandma was a big fan of saying it. Time flies when you're having fun. It's not original by any means, but by God, it is accurate. And Nine Lives, they definitely fly through lobbies when they're having fun, when they're able to play on the front foot. We saw it in their fight up against over Sleepers as they rotated in. That's the Nine Lives that they're trying to be at every point in the game, and while it requires a very high level of execution, we've seen them do it before. So game number 3 could be their time. If not, World's Edge. We'll see what happens. Running late, of course, are right behind them, and I've got to look down at Cenote Cave because I'm sure that we'll be jumping in there almost immediately. But with tripods and boys fighting, somebody just has to decide what is going on.
Honestly, at this point, just split the POI, land, loot, wave your white flags, and just play your game. Or maybe land somewhere else, because clearly it is just not working out for either team, whether they decide to leave early, go third party mill. Evolution comes back and pays that out tenfold. So what will the result of the Cenote Cave contest be for map number 3, your final map in Stormpoint?
Yeah, this is exactly where I would normally go to a fortune teller because I simply can't figure it out myself. I gotta believe what's in the tea leaves. And as we drop in one more time, again going from north to south, this is actually a pretty notable advantage being given to GKS and Nine Lives as we continue our games on Stormpoint. But first move and ring scan again, this time not just for Nine Lives but for GKS, means a lot, especially in our first couple of games where otherwise Stormpoint can be really hectic.
Look, you say notable advantage, which I 100% agree with you, but it's almost as if it's been
Okay.
squandered. Squandered, because you have outside the top 5 for GKS, and then you've got outside the top 10 for Nine Lives. So, hey, we're
True.
giving you this advantage. Take it.
That's true. That's true. And for legal purposes, we are not giving them the
Oh,
advantage.
yeah, very true. Thank you so much, Dia. We do not choose the rings. We do not choose the plane lines. We do not give people anything. It is the Apex gods giveth and the Apex gods taketh, and they take way more than they give.
Very, very true. As even my ranked games earlier today will tell you. Now, the tripods, they've been trying to tell their own story today, and while they looked really impressive in the semis, and of course, everybody, as you said, will remember them from Pro League, this continuation of their Pro League story of constantly being contested has really put a nail in what could have otherwise been a very good series for them. Cenote is something they're practiced in. They have the rotations out of at a very high level, but they just keep running into problems with boys who, and I want to give boys credit for this, are not rolling over at all.
No, and the boys have essentially had kind of a slight armor advantage in every engagement. And for Ellie, just like me, for real, sometimes you think you can fit through things and you just definitely can't. And we just play it off. We're like, yeah, no, that was an accident. What do you mean?
that was pretty tough. I was like, does he die there? Like, is that the moment that,
You get
boys
caught off
lose
guard
their
here.
purple armor? No, it's been tough. This actually interesting strat from boys. We've seen this, I believe it was in EMEA last week with 2 squads contesting each other over by Cenote, but holding second story of this building can create an advantageous situation. It certainly creates a situation where you're just waiting for somebody to mess up, and I suppose if boys are the ones sitting there, they're betting that it isn't going to be them. Quick rotation through from Purple Slushy, suggesting that this ring is taking us a little bit further to the south, as indeed it is. Tripods certainly know that, even from the little bit of information they have on their map. Deeds starting to make their move forward. Could be on the verge of taking out the boys faster than we've ever seen, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Start your clocks now. The Battle of Cenote Cave lasts way too long. It just doesn't necessarily seem cohesive. It's almost as if both teams are relatively hesitant and don't want to commit on anything unless they get a full knock, and even then it's still too drawn out for my liking.
Blood ult already pulled out as well. It's a big use of cooldowns and an in-fight advantage. It could otherwise be used at close range for a little bit of extra move speed, and as we all know, the assistance through Bangalore smokes. Tripods do catch a few members of the boys, but the extension of this fight, as we all know, can only lead to third parties. Forelli gets full send. There is no door here to protect you, Forelli. I am so sorry. And I'll be the first to fall. Nick Merckx follows very quickly afterwards. Dark Boy managing to answer back before getting quickly taken down. Vaki has now fallen, and it's 2v1 in favor of the Tripods.
Definitely not bad moves there from Deeds working that inside, and Gent able to hold the roof, getting some well-needed damage on. That shield crack immediately goes through, and they say, we are getting this done. They were able to get Nick Merckx back up on their feet, and now we just need to close the distance, and just like that, boys are eliminated. A little bit of action here post-engagement, but I mean, look, if you're contesting Cenote for 3 games in, and it's almost been rather a thorn in the side for your point scoring, maybe we turn this tide. We now have 3 KP at the hands of Tripods and a relatively short rotation towards that next zone, with a lot of our teams on that kind of millage side of things looking to post up shop there, right? Because
Yeah,
Evolution, they didn't drop down. There's a reason.
Everybody, first of all, already there, and Evolution, as you said, know that their spot is going to age quite well. Mill already very powerful. They should have all the loot that they need and can play this out as slowly, or as quickly, I suppose, as they like. For the moment, a little bit of Evo is going to be grabbed by Yazto. Everybody on blues is not the ideal, but it's certainly far from the worst that could happen. Evolution will be focused on clearing this northwestern side of the ring before moving in, taking fights like they did last game, and they're not the only one. Smokebreaker looking for some fights of their own. We've seen them at this ridgeline in game 1, and they are making their glorious return to it with Digis as well. Big advantages in early game fights.
Yeah, we talk about the Digis not necessarily being so everywhere, but they're essentially everywhere. And now Smokebreak trying to get some downs onto Icon, forcing them to kind of run out into open water. Serial Cat just needs to land a couple more shots, and then we'll get that knock. But it looks as if, Icon, they're out.
Armor advantage for Smokebreak is crazy to have red this early on into the game, and that's with no kills, by the way, is a big testament to first of all, where they've been able to drop down, the luck that they've had, but then the damage that they've been able to deal since, and it's certainly inspiring them with a lot of confidence to continue moving up. Stomps does have gravity lift if they want to continue to assault the top of Nut. Everybody else has already moved on. Icon know they're in trouble, and I'll be honest, Tiff, I don't think there's much you can do about it right now.
Well, they've already expended their Conduit ultimate back in there just to even put a little bit of space between them and Smokebreak. It worked a little bit, held them up, trying to shoot out the individual kind of energy areas between those because they are kind of tankish, right? But Smokebreak still delayed, still able to keep peppering them with at Hemlock, and it's just kind of delaying the inevitable. I'm not sure if Icon's just looking for a certain position that they're like, all right, here's where we kind of lay the land, we hold ground from here, but keeping the retreat is only going to draw out this fight and allow other teams to get involved.
This This chase right now is reminding me of like late middle school, early high school, because it's the last time that we saw videos on how bad cyberbullying can be. This is really, really rough. There's just no hope for Icon as they move forward. And now, think about where they found themselves after Smoke Break's long extended chase. They may still be alive, but they're in the center of the map, having not had any time to loot, with no shields, down on meds. Icon are going to have an extraordinarily difficult time this game.
Yeah, it is definitely putting them in a less than advantageous position, but S2, your map 1 winners, trying to get knocked on to its Rigo. There goes the full, a good shield swap there. But we already have the Kraber in play also at the hand, so just kind of navigating the ins and outs just to the southern area of Down Beast here before kind of making their way towards Millage. And you just have to work on controlling space. Now you also win this crafter that you have the capability to utilize, and you've got 109 crafting materials and 6 bats, so definitely sitting very well.
Running late. Sort of a collaboration between S2 and Evolution there, and Evolution now know that they're going to have to keep their own eyes continually peeled to the north. S2's rotation down is just a matter of time as the zone will continue to close into the southwest corner of the map. Everybody who set up early, still in a great spot. Pen 5, interestingly enough, around the armory, is gambling a bit on the zone because the armory is extremely difficult to come out of, but if the zone is right, that's free top 3.
Free top 3 would be really nice for them, but 9 Lives, who have had a rather lackluster first 2 games here on Storm Point, making their way towards zone, sitting on triple purple, which, look, hey, if you're going to arrive to play kind of that edge side of things, crafting along your way, you should rotate in with this, and I mean, look, purple bag on the ground as well. But for the team that was looking to make their play here at Down Beast and kind of clear things out when Knight, Florzy, and co show up, S2, they answer.
S2 on top of Downed Beast have a really great spot, especially if the zone's bowling here, but it ain't. As the zone continues to close, they're going to have to start deciding whether they want to play over in Checkpoint or in the no-name buildings just to the south. No Name's tough, but somehow Checkpoint seems even more difficult with the chokes that you then have to exit in order to continue to play the game.
Yeah, and Unleashed was just recently in North Pad. We're rotating in towards S2, get pushed off the high ground of Down Beast and force themselves to kind of take that rotation through Checkpoint. Now, S2 will turn their tides towards focusing on their own rotation, utilizing the Bloodhound scans to kind of make sure no one's necessarily in their path so far, but you have to think about all the teams that have already rotated into this area, most notably Evolution. They landed Mill, they elected not to leave Mill, and all the teams that have already made their way into Millage. Where do you play, especially if you're S2 and you are late to this? Do you go and try to get into that bridge area? And I mean, you could play it, but a lot of teams are going to look at you as you rotate.
The fact that Evolution are still here, that is very difficult to play around, but take a look at the data that they've gotten so far. It's incentivized them to stick around, whereas other teams are encountering problems rotating through Cito. 9 Lives are fortunate enough to be on the better end of this, picking up a few kills, and deservedly so, as they are always looking for fights like this, and playing out of the north, it is expected that they would take this rotate.
Yeah, we do have 2 knocks. We're only looking for the last man standing, which is going to be not Dan. Not Dan is somewhere. 9 Lives feeling that aggressive, wanting to find the last member and take that down. A good Bloodhound scan will give you that result. And Laser and Dynasty are trying to close the distance, but it's going to be a whoop. Gets there just a little bit too late. Regardless, KP still counts. Out for the team of S2, making their way from Down Beast. They have approached the mill, and Evolution, this is their home.
And it's something that Evolution have to have been ready to defend. The fact that they've already lost control of the roof is not a good sign. Maybe they want to bunker up. Maybe they want to share space with S2. But Evolution don't have KP so far, and they're already playing in a corner. It is not good if you're, as we already talked about, the Urice fans aplenty. If you're one of them, this is not where you want to debate.
Carter already able to pick up a knock on to Yazto and doubles down and grabs Vudo. That leaves Urice last standing for this. But this is your map 1 winner going up against map 2. Now, if you're a Evolution fan, Rather unfortunate because S2 just came into their home and evicted them from the lobby. So that will allow S2 to find some good clarity on getting back to the top of the leaderboard and even then breaking that disparity on, because there's still 16 squads left and anything can happen. And as we turn our tides to GKS, this could be a good moment for them.
It's the choke point that we talked about S2 not wanting to opt into, with so many teams needing to come out of checkpoint, and a lot of focus going to be directed by teams that are in places like Mill as well towards gatekeeping this. It is honestly a miracle that GKS are able to walk up to this building that nobody is in.
Yeah, because that was our biggest issue. It's like, we have so much space that's already been taken and unleashed from Northpad through checkpoint and still holding the top. They have zone at their back, and those knockdown shields are going to be hard to navigate around, and Legatron's not going to be able to survive that. So that's rather unfortunate for them that it's GKS sitting on triple red now on that outer edge, turning their tide to fighting forward. And we just need to get that opening knock that will allow Sleepy Panda and Sorcerer to kind of double down on the damage that Chaotic has done.
Hanging around do leave us, but one thing has stayed constant. Chaotic Munches 30-30 is eviscerating squads, gutting them like fish and robbing everyone of whatever meds and bats they may have. The move up to Mill has never been easier than when Chaotic clears 9 lives from being able to peek down at you. And everybody else who sat over in Millage, who bargained on perhaps the armory, as we talked about for Pen 5, or in Purple Slushy's case, this big rock that they've got. Not going to be in a great situation, because open ground is basically all that lies ahead of you as you need to make your way towards the south end of Mill.
Now you can see the map on the right-hand side of your screen. Donut Shop occupying one of the lone buildings towards that kind of southwestern side, and Tripod's trying to take space, but you're looking in a couple different directions, right? You have one member that's going to be looking to try and maybe avoid people from pushing in on their side, like Purple Slushy and such, but you have to fight forward. And that's going to be relatively tough, but S2 continuing on that warpath since evicting Evolution from the Mill, and they need to find another success here. Carter kind of navigating these rocks, focusing on healing up, avoiding Coach go forward.
Denver Thuggets on the low ground, but have already taken one chunk out of S2. Nice shots from Sose, even around that little bit of a head peek, but S2 have already lost one. And with the next round starting to close in, doesn't look like anybody's going to push up on them, despite the shots that Donut Shop were taking earlier. Chathamus Prime will have to start their exit from Mill, but with a Rampart, they can actually play around the south side of it for a little longer than your average team.
Because meanwhile is going to be occupying the Mill. They're only going to get a little bit of area that's going to be playing in this in just about 28 seconds with the Sheila available. And, oh, Wingman Idiom is looking pretty good here. But unfortunately, the Horizon's going to peak just a little bit too soon and definitely not ready for that engagement.
Great control from Adam to hold the angle after the initial walls go down. Amped cover looks good. Wall not going to come up. Didn't have one to place in time. And now with the zone closing in, Chathamus Prime have to walk through the thermite. They have to walk through the fire. It doesn't go as well as it did in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they go down. Fortunately for them, it's mutually assured destruction as everyone wants to be at Mill. S2 are showing up. 9 Lies are showing up. There's third, there's fourth. There may even be fifth parties if we wait long enough.
Pen 5 went down, GKS went down in the chaos, and it's S2 reigning supreme from the Mill, where they were able to take down earlier teams. They returned to the scene of the crime. Now with 6 squads left and north of 5 KP, we turn our attention towards Purple Slushy, who has been sought out by Tripods.
And 9 Lies are getting reses. 9 Lies are still in this thing, just below Team Smiley. No team has an angle on them. S2 can't do it. Smiley can't risk it because S2 will shoot them. And Donut Shop still sit on the nut building to the south, waiting for the ring to come to them. This is what made them great in Challenger Circuit, and it may be what takes them to a Game 3 win.
Smiley now occupying the rock that formerly held Purple Slushy. But when you saw the nut building to the left, it was actually Tripods perched like a bird on top. And yeah, Cruisin's disgusting with that wingman. The moment that went into the care package, whoever has it in their hand, their aim go crazy, you will do things like this. Cruisin is clutching this for Team Smiley and putting a lot of damage onto S2, who was looking so confident, dropping down, extending the black hole. Now the Dark Veil to rotate, taking a good chunk of damage from the ring, but we have to push because we don't have any time.
Nice insta-call from Gambit on that, just to lay down the wall, cut off 9 Lives, not deal with them for now. It does mean the squads like Tripods could take shots at them. As 9 Lives lose another member, but Gent's got other focuses. Looking over at S2, they may be on the outs. Very little cover to play, and 9 Lives going up against them. The last member of 9 Lives, Laser, gonna do their best, playing out of the supply crate, but they get shot in the side.
It's S2. That is going to be one of the most horrifying rotations, but you can play there for just a little bit longer. Let that nut building chaos kind of ensue and then find your time to rotate in. S2, one of the teams not playing Catalyst here, so they have the Bloodhound instead. They're not going to have a Dark Veil for that rotation. Do have an evac tower and potentially some utilization of the Bangalore smokes could assist them, but we just have to bide our time. We talked about the space though. Tripods, you have Deeds all the way extended out from the building behind a rock.
Actually looks pretty good for Deeds, and I like that Tripods are able to take space. It's very difficult to push Deeds from this angle, and if anything, it gives Tripods a safe place to go for later, because Deeds has a much better position relative to where the circle will ultimately be closing. What Tripods have to be careful of is the now 2 squads that are stacked on top of them, with Donut Shop and Team Smiley right below. The timing has to be perfect if and when they choose to drop down and join Deeds for the end game.
The question is, oh, no question. My brain just decided. I was like,
No
I got a
question?
No, my question was relatively answered 2 seconds later. But this is what I want to keep my eyes on. The ability of Deeds here to put pressure onto S2 to kind of force them to delay the rotation.
Want to use the gravity lift here. Deeds should just tank the damage, but not even that's going to occur as he managed to dodge the Rolling Thunder, continuing to put pressure onto S2. They go down. And Deeds gets joined by Nick Mercs and Gent. This is the play for the end game. This is where Tripods should be able to win. Smiley and Donut Shop have to fight.
This is a really sweet push here by Tripods to take up that positioning with Deeds. Now Team Smiley, it is chaotic and they have to fight forward. But this is unfortunate. Cruisin does not have a Digithreat on that R9 and Tripods. They grab that high ground and immediately decimate the rest of the lobby, leaving Deeds outside on the rock. Was so critical in remaining on that space and forcing teams away from that, being able to hold out S2. Now, granted, even holding out S2, Nick Mercs was only able to grab one of those eliminations. 2 of them went to another team.
Now, the calls are good. The execution is great in that end game. And credit to Deeds, as well as Nick Mercs and Gent, for being able to join up at the right times and assist each other in putting down pressure onto squads like S2 at the right times. Because the only reason they're able to win that game as easily as they did is because of the call to hold on to the rock and the way in which they did it, forcing the other 2 squads to fight. That's endgame mastery. That's pro league experience that we are seeing showcased now in the preseason qualifiers. Let's take a look at our standings to see how far Tripods have jumped up the leaderboards.
That's exactly what we needed. We were looking at that, right? We knew coming into this that they were sitting outside the top 10, getting held up in that Cenote Cave contest, and just like that, in a matter of one game, one effectively played game, you are into the mix, sitting in top 3, 2 points out of second place, but a mere 10 points out of first, because S2 did everything that they needed to do properly on that final Storm Point match to really solidify that lead. Now, going into the latter half of our game series, Dia.
Got it.
Can they extend on the points disparity?
That's the mystery. S2 have done so well at farming up kills, at being active on the edge. World's Edge tends to play out a little bit differently. Your loot not often is good, and the fight's so much more difficult to manufacture. So when we get back, we'll check in with our leaderboards once more, and then we'll fly into World's Edge. Times are changing, Tiff, as it's time for our second map of the day. We are going to take a look at the standings because we always do that before we jump into the next game, but with World's Edge on the horizon, this is all going to be contextualized around a change in play style and likely a big shift of where the points currently lie.
And that's what I'm going to be looking for. Maybe you didn't find your footing there on Stormpoint early on, and World's Edge is really where you feel comfortable at. Well, Icon, Boys, Oversleepers, Running Late, this is where we're going to have to turn the tides of things. Tripods came into map number 3 with just 2 points, and after that win, have thrust themselves into the top 3 on the likes of Evolution and S2. But S2, after dropping a game in map number 2 with 0 eliminations, still finding themselves in the top spot. So, and they kind of keep some consistency on World's Edge. I guess we'll wait to see. But in terms of legend compositions, we've been seeing a lot of the same things. And I'd imagine, Dia, would you say that we might see relatively consistent between the 2 maps today?
I expect so. As of right now, there isn't too big of a difference between what you need to run on Stormpoint and what you need to run on World's Edge. While some teams do like to change things up, and in EMEA especially, we like to experiment with Legends, North America tends to be a little bit more consistent on what people want to play and when they want to play it. If anything, we may see even a little bit less Rampart than we've already been seeing. There's only been one. I know. I cry every time. But for the remainder of our teams, this is somewhere where I think a lot of the Challenger Circuit squads who played throughout the finals in all of last year and all of year 3 are going to find themselves having a little bit of an easier time. This is where we can look to teams like Purple Slushy and Shadamus Prime, even Smokebreak, who have plenty of experience. Gucky have a pretty decent shot here, and of course, I'm looking towards Tripods in 3rd place, because if anything, this is going to be where they should take the jump ahead. If they can't overtake S2 in the first couple of maps of World's Edge, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, and relatively strong performance. Like I said, a 24-point game for them in map 3. Now that can kind of save you for maybe 1 or 2 maps when you've already had your kind of lackluster performances with that drawn out contest. You can't really afford to drop any 0-point games on the back half of our series. So for them, you're right, Tripods, they really need to kind of find that stride. Maybe game number 3 kind of was the changing tide they needed to carry their momentum forward. But as we move through character select, I'm trying to keep my eyes out for things that could look a little bit different. The Gook on Gucky is having that crypto once again. Kind of been interesting. We haven't really seen too much of them on the broadcast to see kind of how they're navigating throughout that composition. But other than that, everything looks pretty similar.
At least as we get into this game, I want to say, before we even see the map, that Tripods should be uncontested, right? Like, in theory, they should be okay, and that alone will be a big change. But they're far from the only team in this lobby that is expected to take an uptick or even take more games as we move on to World's Edge. Tier 2 Challenger Circuit has taken a big uptick in its quality of play throughout year 3, and I think that that's caught a lot of teams, even including E8 last week, off guard and how difficult these finals lobbies are going to be, even when you have a lot of experience playing against some of the best teams in the world. But right now, not a whole lot of contests are going on, but we are seeing a few teams head in the same direction, so I'll keep my fingers crossed. Smiley, quickly diverse staging.
Smoke break over at Overlook. We've got Donut Shop getting not only stacks, but Big Mod as well. And you're right, Tripods over at Countdown looking to be uncontested. So solid thumbs up there. We may get some action over towards Fragment West, but we turn our ties to GKS, who have, found themselves outside the top 5, but it just takes one game to really turn the tide for them, and this could be the start that they needed with this little bit of a contest.
It could, and it could very well be their curse. That's my concern, because up against Donut Shop, you never know what's going to happen. Donut Shop, again, took Challenger Circuit by storm last year, and GKS, for all of their prowess, do have to conquer a Titan in its own way. They have a roof of building, they have priority over this entire fight, but that does mean that it's up to GKS to be the ones to make a mistake if it's going to happen. If, for some reason, they lose control of what's going on in stacks, they have no one but themselves to blame.
That is true, and they have the high ground. Sorcerer jumping down, PK in hand, kind of trying to set the trap, and grabs a good knock, trying to double down on the doorway and get a second one, but that Arc Star will provide a little bit of chaotic nature on the outskirts, and Sleepy Panda is down. Young Wavy does fall, and Donut Shop will be eliminated. So, like you said, GKS don't really have anyone to blame because they took the fight and won. You can't blame themselves. They did it.
I'm glad it managed to happen that way, and honestly, not even that close. Donut Shop did put up a really good fight, but GKS left with 2 members standing should feel like they took that pretty comfortably, and I have no doubt that Donut Shop are feeling much the same way. This isn't a matter of whether you go back and fight GKS again. Perhaps better to land over by Big Mon and take the later fight, because right now, giving up that amount of priority, that amount of high ground to GKS just is not it. We've got another fight cooking over at the Dome, however, even though the zone is pulling us over to the northwest.
Yeah, we talked about that northwest area. We saw Pen 5 rotating just to that north area outside of Countdown, exactly where Tripods land. So Pen 5 trying to take action on, and Nick Merckx actually picks up 2 of the 3 members of Pen 5 who have been relatively consistent throughout week 1 and week 2 will fall uncharacteristically early for them.
Unleash V boys. Dark gets shot in the side. Doesn't calculate in all the angles that they can be seen from as it's under the bridge, through the window, and over the wall, but does manage to almost get out with their lives. Frelly Boy finds an answering knock, which does keep boys in this engagement. Baki hits the bat, comes out with the L-Star, devastating at close range, finds another knock. This could be boys.
This could be boys, and maybe was going to hit that syringe. We do have just a little bit ammo left in the R9, but doesn't even need to break it out because your teammate is there to have your back. Hitting that insta-res, we have to start thinking about that rotation towards that northwestern side of the map from Dome, one of the furthest points away, but it's kind of a loot quick and hit the road scenario.
As they manage to do that, not really a whole lot of crafting. They do have beacons here if they want, but boys likely be satisfied with the KP as they make their way up the remaining map. It will cause a bit of trouble as a delayed rotate, especially for boys who put them up against squads that have a lot of firepower under their belts, but with a northern zone like this, there are also a lot of places that you can rotate through, and not a whole lot of choke points that you need to concern yourself with, especially when you consider that you can approach from either the Lava Fisher side or go through Monument.
This is a really similar rotation out of the Denver Thuggets that we saw for Pen 5, but immediately the pressure that they're receiving forces them to kind of back off into Countdown yet again. Meanwhile, Purple Slushy has fallen externally, but evac tower will come out, and this could be another chance for them to push ever so closer forward to where they'd like to be set up.
That's what this is all about. Expending double evac tower is not using it so much as an escape tool, as a relocation tool. One to be used early, and I suppose they wanted to do it frequently, but have very quickly taken it back. With Dan unable to jump up with the rest of the squad, they're going to have to take the long way around, the slow way around. The Denver Thuggets kind of unlucky in this manner, as they got focused out where a lot of other evac towers may not have.
And it's not necessarily going to be the worst thing for them. Yes, they do have to take the long way, but they get crafting in the meantime. Since they had to expend some resources with the double evac towers, you're obviously not going to be able to get those back. The current crafting rotations have that mobile respawn, the purple knockdown 4x8, and the extended sniper mag. So, just focus on the med kits in the back.
This is pretty intimidating, though. Having S2, the top team in the lobby, looking over at you, that's exactly the kind of game that Denver Thuggets were trying to avoid in this rotation. Take a look, by the way, at the map and how it's played out so far. You'll notice that where Tripods took their earlier fight up against Pen 5, they haven't moved from. This Raven that they're playing underneath, very common zone ending when we move up towards the northwest. And if they got a ring scan, Tripods may just have picked the best spot in zone. It's all going to depend, of course, on whether they had the advanced information and whether, of course, the zone actually does end up pulling there, because if you guys have been watching a whole lot of this season, you know that zone's been kind of temperamental recently.
They definitely have, but they could be either correct, because that's essentially what we were witnessing from Denver Thuggets, right? They expend 2 evac towers to try and push on to where Tripods were, where they took out Pen 5, who had already rotated that way. Now, granted, everyone could be wrong, and then there could be a massive mass exodus towards the end, but in the meantime, LBJ out here near the survey beacon.
Yeah,
And
we saw it in game 1, right? Where everybody just guesses. What was it? It ended up being Checkpoint. It was Cedo Station that everybody decided it was.
And that's the issue with the survey beacons, right? Not the ring consoles in particular. The survey beacons, not waiting that extra ring to get that later information, because you scan it, you're like, okay, well, everyone's over here. So maybe we just need to go over here. And if everyone's wrong, then, well, you're wrong too.
Predicting on what everyone else does, it's one of those things. You know, if your friend does it, or will you? And oftentimes, when you are relying on what your friends are doing, because that's what the scan ultimately is, it's a little bit more difficult to predict. For now, it looks like Tripods have picked themselves a fantastic spot, as this ring is looking no less likely to favor Ravens. And even if it does pull a little bit further north or south, Ravens should have a pretty nice rotation in with a nice bit of KP to pick up. It is a definite pro league angle here to take that spot as early as they do, because a lot of other teams will wait to take a position like Ravens because of how difficult it can be to hold. I do appreciate that Tripods are trusting themselves.
But this is where things are going to get a little bit mixy here for sure. S2, we're holding on to Lava Fisher, so dominating. And now you've got that engagement that you were looking for. And the black hole is going to be expended on the inside, and Kosei will fall. Now Carter and Void find themselves rather dire situation. So expending the Bangalore spokes to kind of hit tails running, because 9 Lives have also moved in.
The fact that it's 9 Lives that take out a member of S2 as well, that's really big. 9 Lives, who many had expected to have a bigger performance today, may have just started that by eliminating at least a decent chunk of the competition. S2 are still out there, but their game just got that much more difficult. Laser flanks around the side. Horizontal, bit blind to start off the engagement. Is going to find a nice bit of damage with the arc jars, and importantly, clear the Pharaoh fluid out from in front of them. The entry frag isn't there yet. Laser takes the swing, sprays it negatively, but on the other side, Dynastied is changing everything for 9 Lives. He basically just went in there and 1v2'd.
Yeah, he really did. A Wope came in from the other door, was able to find 2 of the members of that prior team, and that was very strong for him to create that opening for Dynastied, and this is exactly what 9 Lives needed, coming into map number 4 with just 20 points, putting them in 6th place. Now, coming off a 2nd place finish in week number 1, you're right, Dia, we were kind of looking towards them to have a dominating performance, or maybe find themselves at the top of the leaderboard, and a lot of questions were to be had about GKS as well, finding themselves at landslide, the top, fighting throughout, a little bit of parkouring around and trying to navigate this fence line. But chaotic, every time we come over to him, 330 in hand, just being a complete nuisance, and LBJ fall.
Trying to compete with this 30-30 is just setting an impossible standard for Apex players everywhere. Chaotic is changing the game with how much consistent damage he's able to do and consistent kill secures he's able to find. Not just knocks, as we've seen in previous games. It is a recurring threat for every team, and unfortunately, yet another falls to the hands of GKS, who albeit still need to move further north, as the zone is going to continue to. Taking a look at this, it doesn't look like we're going Ravens for an end game, but any team positioned in Skyhook is going to have found themselves in a much better spot than it would have been otherwise. Boys start pushing up themselves. This is on to 9 Lives. Great trade for Dark.
Boys, what are we doing? 9 Lives just showed how dominating they were, but they look to be nearing the reses. Can we get it up? Darks, it will be up. 9 Lives are back up to 3 as well. Now, time is of the essence, because once that ring starts to close, the boys will be gate kept out of this situation. You can see there are pings a little bit further back onto that crafter, and hanging around has fallen. But how will boys approach the building with 9 Lives? This is reinforced, but could essentially trap 9 Lives and delay their rotation as well.
There's also the chance that 9 Lives have Catwall available, and both teams go their separate ways. At least the boys seem vastly uninterested in fighting at this point, but they've drawn the focus of the tripods now, with 2 teams rotating up. Could be the entry both 9 Lives and boys need in order to divide attention between each other. Vaki tries to push up onto the Rolling Thunder, doesn't happen, and instead, the boys get chewed up and spit out by the zone.
Yeah, but Gent was able to grab 2 of the eliminations for boys. S2 has fallen, and now 9 Lives still have to deal with smoke break, which is going to make things so much more interesting, because tripods are still in this engagement as well, not overextending out, but trying to find angles that allow Gent to supersede with the 30-30 and apply pressure. But the fact that a Wope has even gotten out of this, has 3 KP and have broken into the top 10, can you get to at least maybe a top 5 and get just a few more of those placement points before the tripods kind of suss you out?
every point matters, and Awoke, gonna try their hardest, does make it into this little crevice below Countdown, but that is only a brief respite from what you're gonna have to do, which is a lot of running. Catalyst Wall should be up soon for 9 Lives, and Tripods won't be in their way anymore, as Genta's already starting to smoke out a clear path forward for the Tripods, who need themselves to find a place to play, hopefully inside this building. They're pinging it out. Don't want to risk a third party, but taking the entry in, Tripods do find themselves a pretty safe spot if they want to hold on to it for the rings to come.
And we did have a skyhook ending earlier on in EMEA, and a team that held one of the outskirts building rooftops was able to take the win. Now, granted, it was not the same zone that we are witnessing here, and honestly, with Team Smiley and Tripods kind of occupying the same building, but Smiley finding themselves kind of in that mid-tier, not necessarily on the roof, not kind of overextending and peeking out, but it's where will Smoke Break go? Hitting that evac tower, what is available to them? You're going to see a free rooftop potentially, and you might look to take onto that, but Stomps is already getting pressured from afar. Loses out on the shield, keeps the life until, well, Slack is fine too.
Yeah, this fence line, as good as it may have been, relative to the other spot Smoke Break we're trying to play, not the actual move. Dead center of zone, but there are still plenty of angles onto where Smoke Break lie, and plenty of nades likely in the hands of their competitors. Really important at this stage in the game. So we'll keep our eyes on Smoke Break, see what they're able to do. As a duo, however, it's not looking great for them, especially since they've had to expend Catwall that would have been otherwise crucial in keeping teams off them for the future.
Very vital points here, especially when you talk about the nades. With the so many horizons in the lobby, it's one grav lift and 3 ordinances coming your way that will completely damper your game. And yes, you've got a great position in that zone, but you do have Tripods and Team Smiley in the building to your right, Chatham is Prime to your north, and even Evolution is still in play here, very far north. So Icon, Oversleepers, GKS, Gucky, and even 9 Lies have to rotate from east to west. Fences and buildings galore. Things are going to get a little interesting, especially when Chatham is Prime kind of makes the play onto what could be the lone member of Evolution.
Went for that kill, but for the moment, Shadamus Prime do get stymied, not wanting to push out into the slides of sight of Icon or over these walls. Yazto's doing their best, but with Slacking's shields now taken down and Icon looking over at this fight, Shadamus Prime put their otherwise fantastic position in question. You can't afford to drop a member here.
Yasto maybe was 0.5 HP. 9 Lies, their solo has been found out as well. That went to Tripods, but the ability of Icon here to like just look for information on that rotate in, expanding out, trying to find places of where they can take that space, and then finding that pressure. Radiant Transfer is going to come out at the hands of Blake to get everyone kind of full HP for the rotation, but it doesn't matter because Dan's meets resistance as soon as he walks inside that door. Now Blake and not Dan need to find a way to put the pressure on the team on the inside.
And Kraber, it can do wonderful things for you, and it can do terrible things to you. Icon, find that out the hard way, as Sauce finds the initial knock so quickly. GKS make their way to the building. Still a pretty safe spot to play. A swing onto the last wrap from Icon keeps them in it. And not a whole lot of people are available to play the roof. It may even be an angle for GKS to try and grab lift up and take the roof of this building. A fantastic play for them if they're able to make it work. And as they pop in, nobody's even here to fight them.
No one has willingly played this roof. We talked about the 2 teams that were in this building, but they were holding the mid and bottom floors. No one was playing the roof. The ability for GKS to hit one grav lift and find this for free is kind of crazy. All they have to do is peek over, and you'll see the fence line on which Smoke Break was kind of lurking by. So this could be a very solid game for GKS, who came into map number 4 in 4th place with 22 points.
It has to be at least a 3rd place, if not better. Oversleepers, they are praying they get that kind of luck, but it is looking very unlikely. with how this is going so far. No space to themselves, and Cruz Ramirez gonna hang out and hope that nobody spots them joining the last rat of Icon, and maybe, just maybe, pulling out to the fence line. 7 squads left, a bit more like 6 at this point in the game. And keep your eyes on Chadamus as well. We do need to rotate in from the north.
Oversleepers currently in 16th place of the lobby, tied with 3 teams at 9 points. Now, think about this kind of rotation out of the building that those teams find themselves in. At the end of the day, GKS will likely have to jump off that lightly. But the way they choose to navigate it, just like they used the grav lift to get up, I would love to see maybe hit a grav lift to push them over to some rock cover in the meantime, but they don't have to leave just yet. We need to find out kind of where these teams are hiding between the fence lines. And with Sleepy Panda, we see 1 thermite, right? And the question is, how many ordinances do we have? But when your Kraber hits like that, that's a good way to put pressure on the teams that have already been down. And Sauce, 5% away from that rolling thunder that will help them so tremendously in this endgame.
With Oversleepers down, Gucky and Chadamus Prime have really good spots. Gucky just off to the western side, and Chadamus Prime starting to walk up right now. Playing directly underneath GKS. Could be a death sentence, as you know this team's gonna have to drop down. Huge rolling thunder for Sorcerer, but they're not gonna drop down just yet. Letting the rest of this play out. Chadamus Prime use a knockdown shield, and GKS, as they drop, will have to deal with them. Sorcerer can't afford to ignore the right side. Sleepy Panda takes the lead. Over they come, directly onto Chadamus Prime. Do GKS send themselves? 4 squads left. They lose Chaotic Punch. Chadamus Prime are down. Still in this is Gucky, but they send it right onto GKS, immediately expiring. GKS still have Sorcerer in this. The Kraber God himself clutches out the last kill, and GKS take game 4.
You said at least a top 3. Well, they wanted more. Played from the rooftop with ease, getting that rolling thunder back just in time to be able to expend that on the full entirety of that lobby. Holding that high ground, just that extra 5 seconds really allowed them to put so much pressure, and it was so executed beautifully. Congratulations to GKS putting that win on the board. I'd imagine that is going to shake things up completely, because I saw at least 7 to 10 eliminations, Dia.
Yeah, it was a big, big game for GKS, and exactly why this squad was so hyped up coming into today. The fact that they play it slow, they take these non-risky spots in SkyWest, and only when they must do they take the roof, finding that no one else is there. Big, 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 big. And let's not say anything about the Rolling Thunder, because people are going to be watching that replay plenty. Let's take a look, however, at the standings, because those have been thrown into turmoil. We promised that World's Edge was going to do that, and lo and behold, it has. GKS are in the lead, and by a mile.
So they came into map number 4 with 22 points and now stand at the top with 51 points, Dia. That is a massive game, and probably the largest one that we've witnessed today, but congratulations to Tripods, who had a 12-point game there for themselves, initially starting off playing under the Raven and doing well, but it was S2 that ran into some turmoil early on and only was able to acquire 1 point.
Sorcerer, IGL GKS has brought teams up before. Making a drug-free from last year. Are they about to do it again? 2 games left to determine that. So, I look forward to Game 5 when we come back from a break. I know. It has been a wild day, and we still got 2 games, Tiff. That's the best part. Let's take a look at the standings because we did talk about GKS quite a bit, but I was so blown away by their 51 points to take the lead that I still have to look at the rest of this thing.
Yeah, it was pretty monumental for them. 28-point game in map number 4 to kind of jut yourself back up to the top. And it's to no surprise, right? They came in from semifinals leading the charge, starting things off with a win. But then you have Tripods, right? In second place with 38 points. And here's where the stories get a little interesting. You think about their semifinals journey. They barely made it to the finals lobby in semifinals 2, right? It got 10th place. So kind of 2 totally different situations in semifinals, and now you got GKS who won theirs, Tripods in 10th, kind of duking it out at the top 2. But Tripods need another really stellar game to be able to get themselves to unseat GKS. Because once you start kind of getting that points disparity this early on, it's only a matter of time. So you think back to EMEA this morning, someone hit 100 points almost, 99. Like, that's the thresholds we're dealing with.
So it was a lot of wins. It was a lot of wins.
A lot.
Yeah. On the other side of that coin, Donut Shop and Pen 5, 11th and 12th. Donut Shop, of course, if you'd been watching the semifinals, you would have expected them to come in and just slay. And yet, sitting in 11th, they've yet to have that pop-off game. Perhaps their positioning not quite mind-controlling the rest of the lobby in the same way, with teams so much more willing to fight. What surprises me in that case, though, is where Pen 5 have landed, because this team actually fights very, very well.
Wow. They fight well indeed. I would love to see that. Do that here for the last 2 games, but you're not wrong in those regards. Nine Lives have been fighting very well. It's just been the engagements that happened to them post that initial fight. The third parties have not been in their favor here today, but still able to find themselves kind of outside, just dabbling with that top 5. So maybe their tides will turn for the final 2 matches of the day. But then these are where things get interesting. And I do see hanging around playing the Loba, one of the only Lobas in the lobby. And I do love her for Worlds.
And Pen 5, one of the only Watsons as well. A more defensive pick, and one that really does allow you to counter engage against things like Catalyst and defend yourself from Horizon in ways that other legends simply can't match up to. This may be a turning point for Pen 5, but it also means that it's highly ring dependent, where we saw teams like the Denver Thuggets try and rotate into zone early. That's the kind of playstyle that you have to expect Pen 5 to be going for now that they've swapped to Watson.
Definitely gonna have to keep an eye on this, but it looks as if Purple Slushy will be navigating to that northern climatizer side here, where Evolution not only landed last week, but they landed here so far today. But when you're gonna have a challenger kind of land dead center of climatizer and like kind of loot the bins surrounding and the inside, this is really tough, because if this was unexpected, Evolution's going to land as planned, right? Which may put pressure on them, with Yasto kind of being out into the right side of the building, Euris and just to the left.
Tactical, unfortunately, from Infinity doesn't get any value. Popping the conduit tack early, unfortunately biting them there. The rest of the contests, however, still playing out across the map. Monument does have a bit of action in it for now, as Running Late have stabilized with a bit of high ground and plenty of cover for the White Tom Cruise.
Curious to see the stunts that we will witness out of Tom Cruise here, since he does all, most.
He does. Hadn't even thought about it. Running Late are starting to encroach on this fight. Does make me a bit nervous, as especially sieging high ground in Monument, difficult to make go well without the assistance of a third party, and Double O Negative seems to have been shot in the side by a rogue member.
Crossfire's coming in, and it's actually going to be Evolution up in Climatizer. That will fall to Purple Slushy. While we're checking in here with Running Late, trying to find a way to lay siege towards that center. A couple nades going to go up, and Rigo hits the grav lift, but lo and behold, they've traded places.
Running late, I mean, pretty comfortable with this. Donut Shop, not nearly so comfortable as they go down, and in a big way as well. GKS being the ones to take them out.
Is there something in the weather for this lobby? Let me tell you, obviously this engagement that's been happening, Icon will be eliminated running late, you know, better than ever, are going to be able to finish out that engagement. But these lobbies have played out quite weird compared to EMEA earlier, and a lot more sloppy than maybe we would have witnessed last week for NA. Just a little
And
hot take.
there's already a third party here as well, which only further serves to contribute to the exact narrative that you're talking about, Tiff. Chase Mob does reinforce the door for a moment before getting back up from Presley, but it's still a pretty scuffed fight, and with Double O Negative chunked out, I can't help but wonder if Pen 5 are pushing the pace a bit too far.
Yeah, but I mean, even after they rotate early on and they try to prioritize those end games, but you saw kind of what happened on their early rotation, just kind of into tripods. They lost that engagement. They went out much earlier than anticipated, and now they might be trying to kind of correct that prior game and find early KP. Meanwhile, Unleashed have also fallen. So a lot of action early on. We're down to 16 squads, and Ring 1 is starting to flip.
Yeah, we had almost the same amount of squads moving into round 3 of last game, so let's take that as a bit of an example of how quickly this lobby has gone so far. Pen 5 finding another kill, not a squad wipe, so we can still hold on to a little bit of hope. Maybe this persists until round 3, but the very fact that we've got teams that are hungrier for points, for zone, and importantly for kills early on does mean that end games, especially mid games, may be all that much slower, but for 9 lives, they're not even gonna get to participate. The Denver Nuggets take them out.
I mean, I would expect nothing less from the Denver Nuggets. Meanwhile, we were just overlooking kind of a geyser standoff. You've got Gucky on the back buildings. You had Smoke Break kind of navigating their way. And if we're down to 15 squads already and that engagement potentially going to break out, there's going to be a lot less teams in that end game that we were talking about. So for the teams that might be looking to play zone and actually focus on it, you can see towards Geyser, because that's where a lot of our teams are kind of making their way down. Purple Slushy, after kind of evicting Evolution from Climatizer, have turned their tides kind of navigating to Overlook, where the ring console is.
This is so rough, though. I mean, we've already seen several zones today not go the way that teams anticipate them to. When you predict a geyser zone, if you get it wrong, and if you predict that it's not a geyser zone and you get it wrong, one of the toughest POIs to rotate into and out of, especially in a late game scenario. Chokes on all sides, buildings extraordinarily close together, lots of open ground. It is nightmare fuel for a lot of these teams that, even if they're pretty confident, are still taking the chance that spots like Gucky's all the way deep in Geyser are even viable for rounds 4 and beyond.
It's a very, very vital point that you make there, because I know when we talk to analysts, we talk to coaches, we talk to players, the one zone that is notorious for shaking up a lot of people is Geyser. And for every reason that you just stated, you can think it is a Geyser zone all day, and then it is so fickle because at the end, it will just pull straight towards the outside of it. And you're just like, oh my God. What has
Sometimes you
happened?
go mods, sometimes you just go siphon. You remember Grandma's house zones? Haven't seen one of those in a while, but as fate would have it, we may be getting one. Could really be anything, especially at this stage in the competition. Tripods are starting to make their late rotate over from Landslide, and as we mentioned, Gucky have already set themselves up in what very well might be a game-winning position, or could be the very thing that kills them.
Look, we've also seen a zone pull where it's like half mountain, half those 3 supply bins on that kind of southern side of Geyser, where no one is really occupied just yet. And the last time I saw that, I think it was Complexity in the regular season of Pro League, just kind of sitting there, and it was not good for them. So, yeah, unfortunate, right? But regardless, still got some teams trying to fight over here in Monument.
Some reses have come through. Running late. get a few members back into the game. White Tom Cruise making their spicy return as Chatamus Prime roll up with triple purple. Not choosing to hard fight this just yet, as again, siege onto Monument Height, notoriously annoying, but Chatamus Prime still in a great position to gatekeep this, or rather, try and fight them on the way in, I say, as I remember where the zone is.
It's tough because it's a lot of these teams that are finding themselves outside the top 10 that are trying to make a late run in these final 2 games. And that's dangerous for a lot of teams that are looking to focus on their rotations and play their own game, right? Because if you have nothing to lose and you just unleash that onto a lobby, already didn't really have solid structure and was kind of unhinged, it makes things so much more difficult for the teams that are like, I am going to play some kind of zone, right?
Look at this, look at this, look at this.
This is
my
what I'm
God.
talking about. The unhingedness. And now tripods are just going to capitalize on this weirdness that Chatamus Prime is looking to make.
That rap play was just dirty, and cutting to it from the overhead POV really made it evident how tripods were waiting for somebody to try rotating out. Gent does go low, but tripods already got what they came for. Singular knock in their favor. They're going to look for a little bit more and should be able to find it as a damn. Not looking too great. Chatamus Prime, hasta la vista. They did their best, but never really got to take a fair fight.
Look, and that's why the devs keep giving us all those like hollow sprays that have to do with ratting.
Oh yeah.
No, we know that was ranked and kind of memeing that, but this is another situation where I would also like to throw that hollow spray out.
Running late have certainly found the killers of their most recent adversaries. Now I suppose it's the enemy of my enemy has now become my enemy, which is a little bit unfortunate for all sides. Tripods should have some more fighting available to them soon, as Nick Merckx has just managed to pop an ult Excel, getting Beast to the Hunt that much further accelerated. Indeeds, while not finding any purchase with the Gravity Lift just yet, certainly found somebody to take advantage of once the Gravity Lift comes back up. 20 seconds is how long you have to live, and you better get out of dodge soon.
You do not want to get held up here, and Gent going to answer back with a Rolling Thunder of their own as we make our way towards this train station. Rigo kind of dropping down on the outskirts, loses out on their shield. Gucky eliminated in Geyser, and now Nick Merckx and co trying to kind of kick down that door and find a little bit of damage, but they've got to get out of the ring, but it needs to be relatively controlled.
Round 2 doesn't really mess around, though, and Tripods have taken quite a bit of zone damage, making this a lot tougher of a fight than it otherwise might have been. Finding 2 cracks is big, but they can't push, because if they do, Gent goes down to zone, Nick goes down to zone. Tripods are getting their actual fighting stymied just by the ring alone. Oversleepers go down, 12 squads left, and we're still fighting in Fragment.
Oh, you see Nick Merckx immediately pinging syringes, so heals are an issue for them. Now, they were able to capitalize on the damage that Gent did push out. They were able to grab 1 knock, but with Purple Slushy still lingering around, not electing to rotate, still kind of hanging out, knowing there are teams around here. That could be a move if you kind of get an inkling that a certain team at the top of the leaderboard is around this area. Teams identify them by all different ways, whether it's their legend composition and kind of how they play. We've seen that happen before. That could allow them to say, hey, maybe these teams are taking too long and we want to push out and just end it here before focusing on our rotation.
That was a lot of cooldowns thrown right back. I don't get the feeling that they want to fight Purple Slushy, and then suddenly running late do send it in after finding a knock. Unfortunately going down. Infinity gets the syringe off and I believe should be able to recover, but with only 15 seconds left, Dell's not going to make it.
Yeah, that is not what you want, and it begs to ask the question of, did Tripods able to get out of the storm? Were they able to rotate and find themselves kind of inching ever so closely towards Geyser? You can see GKS kind of on the northern side of this free cam shot. S2 kind of sandwiched in between boys as well, but S2 had kind of not the best mid-game performance in this series. So coming back into the final 2 games, if they want to get back to the top of the leaderboard, they need to do it now, and Tripods are moving in towards Pen 5.
Remember, Tripods don't have heals, so they cannot hang around and wait for a weakness to be demonstrated in Pen 5. The crack came in onto Chase, and a push immediately afterwards doesn't occur. Fences are being destroyed, but in the meantime, Tripods are tanking Ring, and they are sure to go down.
Are they trying to think about going in through kind of vault tunnel? They have to push here, but Gent grabs an opening knock onto Chase, but Pen 5 turns around and just decimates Tripods, punishing them for even trying to put a sneaky play on the fence lines that Pen 5 had just really choked out. It was well done, but GKS, your winners of map 4, with what quite possibly was the largest game of our series, are looking to continue on that momentum.
That was pretty messed up, actually hitting the scan and finding out that it was just one member. Still makes a trade though, and Sorcerer goes down, but GKS should be able to recover. No Digi on this Prowler, but maybe that can be amended moving towards the next ring. This is a pretty great way for this to go for GKS as well. After picking up a win in round 4 and rotating to the opposite side of the map, they get a zone that pulls right next door, that gives them a free choke point to take control of with Mod, and they turn that already into KP and a top 6 performance. We'll see how much further they can push it, but GKS will be likely staying at the top of the leaderboards after this game, putting a lot of pressure on Game 6.
And the reason for that is to be able to take that critical fight against S2, eliminating them. Tripods fell earlier to Pen 5, and that was your 2nd and 3rd place team. Now with GKS still alive, they're going to be able to extend that points lead. So you turn the tides to the teams that are still left in this what is a geyser zone. Gucky had it right earlier. Too bad they weren't able to maintain that position. Smokebreak also elected to play Geyser early on, and they took the fight against Gucky, unseating them and taking their position now. But for Pen 5, who was holding that choke point, Dia, they are beginning that rotation in.
Note the momentary swap, giving Gold Helm to Presley. This is a really important and niche change to give Bangalore faster access to smokes, and of course perhaps the Rolling Thunder, but importantly smokes on the rotate through the open ground that Geyser otherwise create. GKS, smooth moves, taking space out towards the eastern side of this map, and it's going to let Sleepy Panda walk on in, heal up despite the amount of damage they took. Pen 5 go down in 6th place. Not what they were looking for, but still a market improvement over their previous rounds. And hanging around, do need to hustle to get into zone, but have relatively nice cover down here. 5 squads left. We may go down to 4, but we've also got enough space that nobody has to fight. GKS do go down. Big shift in the momentum happening towards the eastern side of this ring.
And as you look towards that eastern side of the ring, we know Team Smiley was still up in it. Smokebreak was able to survive that initial push from GKS, which leaves one team left. If I'm not mistaken, it's Purple Slushy. They were able to kind of stabilize just a little bit from that rotation out of Fragment East. Maybe down a member, though.
So yeah, still playing this out as a duo, weren't able to recover their 3rd. They have a little bit of cover to play towards the north end of next ring, but it isn't going to look good for them. It all depends on what Smokebreak do, and the fact that Smokebreak are taking ground, poking towards hanging around, suggests that they're going to try and take control of the ridge line and the very slight slope that leads down to Smiley and hanging around, hopefully forcing the 2 squads to fight. Smokebreak are not even considering Purple Slushy at this point.
Ooh, but I like this, because Purple Slushy, they just need to stay and bide their time. You can see they have no white meds. They are glass cannons at this point and are just going to play the long game here and just try to get as many placement points as possible. But for Smokebreak, utilizing those ultimate accelerants, trying to get the ultimate availables in on this ridge line that you said. Now, if they can put pressure on the team that falls between them and Team Smiley, it could put them in that easy top 2 situation.
Serial Cat is chugging, ultimate accelerants, almost like they're monsters that land. And Smokebreak gonna drop down. Try and wall this off to leave hanging around. Remember, pushed into Smiley. This is the entire goal of the play. Catalyst Wall got expended. Rolling Thunder got expended. And still hanging around or pushing into Smoke Break. The incentives aren't enough. Serial Cat almost goes down. Smoke Break have to commit to the fight. Hanging around, go down. But the third party isn't quite there. Smiley haven't moved. Purple Slushy have the eastern side of zone. And now it may be a 3v3 that Purple Slushy can ultimately poke out and take advantage of.
Purple Slushy just kind of slowly peeking out will be Infinity. Like, I don't have enough heals to try and actually do something just yet, but the fact that they've made it to top 3 is going to be very good for them. They came into the final 2 maps of the day with 12 points, so they needed something to turn that around. But the fact of Team Smiley letting Smoke Break out in the open, full reset, just goes to show you they were taking an advantage of it. The fact that Purple Slushy did move out of that. But they don't know.
Smiley are going to try and wall this as well, I believe. Making their way out towards Purple Slushy, not with the intention of killing them, but doing the same thing that was previously the plan of Smoke Break, to try and push Hanging Around and Smiley together. Purple Slushy going to be the innocent bystanders in all of this. As of yet, not particularly noticed, but I do believe that Smiley, at the very least, knows where they are, if not necessarily that they're a duo.
But only time will tell. It's just being extended out. With the final ring closing, it will start kind of pushing people out further. When you've got the energy barricade out from Purple Slushy, it's just a little bit too early because it just gave Smoke Break the opportunity to take out some of kind of the cells in between.
Smoke should know this is a duo now. Their push on Purple Slushy isn't happening. They want to try and play for first, but it's exposing them to Smiley, who do end up using that very same wall to put both Purple Slushy and Smoke Break on the same side of zone. Out come the Sky Nades. Smiley just needs a crack or two to continue on this push. Cruisin takes a lot of damage. Gravity Lift still available if they want to try and jump over the wall.
I'd imagine that's what they're going to do. They do have the black hole that they can couple with that. But once the wall, oh, but check out Gambit over here, just kind of finessing through the perpendicular dark veils, and nothing has really manifested from this yet, but the arc stars, the frags coming out. Cruisin nestles into just a little bit of the rocks to prioritize healing, but gets found out. It's going to be Stomp, who just decimates Team Smiley one by one. Smoke Break reigning healthy, now turn their tides onto Purple Slushy, who were able to withstand any semblance of a push with the Dark Veil, and they just need to find the final one.
Serial Cat takes the last shot with the wingman, secures the win for Smoke Break, and a really nicely played one as well. Never dipping to try and play for second and use those little bits of points. Instead, they got as much as possible, always going for the kills when they presented themselves, but never taking big risks. And I really appreciate that last fish of an ultimate out of Stomps, tossing out the Horizon ult, tossing out a few Arc Stars, finding a crack and going, you know what? It's time. Better late than never, and committing wholeheartedly to the fight. That's going to earn Smoke Break a nice jump in points. Let's actually find out how far up the leaderboard it took them, as this was our 5th game out of 6. Only one more left to go.
Well, they came into the 5th game with 21 points, and they now find themselves in 2nd place with 45 points, so a 24-point game for them. It's just been very back and forth ping-pongy of a leaderboard, but that just goes to show you how interesting our lobbies have been today, just kind of all over the place. It seems like people can't necessarily catch a break. They're a lot more chaotic than our week 1 already, but GKS nonetheless still finding themselves at the top, almost 20 points separating them from 2nd place. Now, barring anything crazy to happen in the final game of the day, this could be an auto qual for them, but I don't want to curse anyone just yet. So, Dia, let's cut to a quick break, and when we come back, we can dissect the rest of the leaderboard.
One game. One game left to go. Somebody's going to Pro League, but it's still, as you pointed out, a mighty close race, Tiff. Let's pull up the standings because we've talked about the teams at the very tippity top, but with about 20 to 30 points, and 30 being at the very high end of things, in order to surpass GKS, we've got arguably 5 teams that could walk away knowing that they're going to be participating in Pro League come January.
Yeah, I mean, these are all very valid points. I mean, Nine Lives, one of the teams that were only 9 teams in the finals lobby that were in the lobby in week 1. So they're getting well needed points. Same with Evolution and Tripods being new this week, finding themselves a good chunk of points so that they can remain consistent. But the fact of the matter is, anything can happen. You're right. About 19 points separate GKS from second place. Now, if GKS completely get landed on, you never know what could happen in North America right now because it could happen. We've seen crazier things. But that would open the door for, you're right, Smoke Break, S2, and Tripods, and even Team Smiley. So those are the teams that I'm going to have my eyes on.
And the biggest contributor to exactly what you're talking about is that GKS have been being landed on by Donut Shop. Both these teams fighting each other at the start of the game at Stacks has gone GKS's way 2 times, but it just takes one to open things up for teams like Smokebreak, S2, Tripods, and of course Team Smiley right behind those 5 that could walk away with a spot today. The fact that GKS, on their first appearance in the finals, are on the verge of making it to Pro League already says a lot. However, quality of this roster is so high. Saucer, as we talked about, having qualified in the last preseason qualifiers with Drug Free, Chaotic, that last member of E8 that could make it in, making it, the E8 special for the first 2 weeks, and Sleepy Panda, who has just come out of retirement and may just make it to Pro League in the very same breath. There's a lot to look forward to for GKS.
There's a lot of people coming out of retirement and trying their hand at getting back into Pro League. Over in EMEA, you've got Vipes, you've got Shiv, and they are making plays to get themselves back in. And in North America, I mean, we still had the boys at TSM Max who are absent from the finals lobby, but had done such a dominating performance and gotten quality points from week 1. There's a lot of people, right, trying to play their hand, and Tripods themselves also looking for some action here to get back into Pro League. So the final game, all eyes are on GKS, your current leaders, your current ticket holders. Should they survive this map 6, the final coveted map of our 6-game series, they will have that ticket to Pro League. Join Elevate Gaming, who qualified last week from North America.
Going to be a high bar in the Pro League this year. We talked about how much the Tier 2 scene improved over the last year, and it's really been demonstrated in these preseason qualifiers with a lot of former pros being given a run for their money during the course of these only 2 weekends of competition so far. We've still got 2 more weekends, and of course I invite all of you in the audience to try your hands at it as well if you're feeling particularly competitive, because preseason qualifiers are open to just about anyone, provided that you have played Apex for long enough and have a squad with which to do it. So, as we drop in one more time, GKS and Donut Shop down in the southeastern side of this map. Stacks and Mod being split between them, neither one taking the risk. And GKS should be breathing a sigh of relief for that. Launch site, however, that's full of risk.
Definitely full of risks, and the boys already finding a knock and full on to 1, so turning that into a 3v2 situation. But while Forelli and Darks were occupying and just overseeing what Vaki is doing, they took a large chunk of damage throughout the final 2 members. Now, Purple Slushy, where did they go? They land on Evolution over at Climatizer. Well, they decided to go Fragment. So while this engagement is happening, there are 3 teams between Fragment East and Fragment West.
Vaki finally gets some much needed bullets walking over the energy ammo. Huge knock from Pirelli. Feels bad when you get hit in the heel making your way into a building, but man, does it feel nice to collect on it. Other side of this has Legatron making a final stand. Does get a knock. Gonna go for the finish, you have to imagine, but the fact that Dark walks up Hits the scan as well, means that there was never really a chance. Unleash do get taken down, and boys finish the fight before it gets started on someone else's terms.
Not bad to clean that up. Now you've got crafting, you have the console available, there's beacons nearby. So overall, not going to be a bad start for them, but it's GKS and Donut Shop that we're kind of keeping our eyes on, right? They went kind of relatively split on that. And Donut Shop, you can see them poised and positioned towards GKS, kind of looking for some vital information from them. But with this zone encompassing both Stacks and Big Mod, start looking to where our teams might be alluding towards. Denver Thuggets are moving towards Geyser, hanging
Oh,
around towards Geyser. This can be the misleading Geyser zone that we were kind of talking about the prior map.
it really could. And in this case, GKS and Donut Shop actually have a great angle because you can play for late Geyser when you already have control of places like Stacks and Mod. We do return, however, to where the party was at all of last game. Monument, as Purple Slushy do start clawing their way in. They have smoked out the high ground for now, but that's not going to remain the same forever. Dell and Pluto bunker up for the moment, but a rotation through and into areas like Geyser does sound pretty good, even for Purple Slushy, who've enjoyed picking some fights here in the past.
They've definitely just been surfing around these lobbies. They haven't necessarily found their flow, but by, test limiting on the different drop spots and kind of navigating different things, it's all learning and adapting to that. But for Pen 5, who have not necessarily found what would be their final form and flow, the series, Hambino, Chase Mob, bolt down, leaving Depressedly, final one standing, hits that quick shield swap, but is able to do the damage needed, but not before they run into Megatron, who is not on the same team as Legatron. I just want to clarify that. Legatron's already down and out.
It's confusing, but we'll have to stick with it for now. I am surprised that Presley was able to escape, but a really nice shield swap just in time on a gold shield, no less, means that Pen 5 at least have a chance of collecting a few more points, though they are likely to, during the course of this game, fall further from their already 10th place position. The fact that they are repeat appearances in the finals is good for them, however, and it is going to feel a whole lot better than showing up your first time and being a little bit less than 10th. Still plenty of time for that to change. Banners can be recovered. Denver Thuggets, maybe not so much. They've lost to January. Optimus Megatron whiffs on the ult, and a tough fight becomes so much harder.
Smoke break inside on the building, and you're right, that black hole not going the way they needed to, but Megatron barrels forward nonetheless, but gets caught out on the left side, and the Denver Thuggets will fall to your map 5 winners at the hands of Smoke break. But you can see all of the different bullets coming from the various directions, and it's going to be Gucky, who actually was taken out by Smoke break in the former lobby when everyone was kind of rotating into Geyser. So they have a bone to pick, and they will push straight in, able to knock 2 members of Smoke break, looking for the final, and they do.
They're out. That's it. Our second place team no longer in contention, and GKS can start letting out a little bit of the breath that they are holding in this game. Team Smiley are finding Nox, however, and that's going to be problematic. 9 Lives start to make their way in through the long snakes leading towards the eastern side of Geyser. And while they're not going to find anything just yet, they are going to note that Smiley go down. Another squad that could potentially have challenged GKS now has met their untimely end.
But S2 still in the mix of things, so that is who we need to keep our eyes on. And 9 Lives with 40 plus points. This is going to be really, really tough. I said 40 plus, but now I'm like, were they at 40 plus, or was I looking at the semifinal scoreboard because my brain is losing it? It's 11.
Tripods is who you're thinking of, and I got you. They are still moving forward in this lobby, as are 9 Lives, who I think understandably do need to make up quite a few points. The fact that they're in 8th right now is actually a pretty big step up, but the gap between them and first place, much too large for comfort. It would take a historic game, and 9 Lives don't seem to be finding themselves that after a nice ult comes in on the opposite side of this engagement. There is still the chance to take a res on Dynasty, but getting shot through the window means that 9 lives are down to a solo and are unlikely to make a recovery.
Purple Slushy getting to the mix as well, and S2 kind of holding the choke. Not necessarily committed to pushing full down into Geyser just yet. They're okay and comfortable with peppering and putting pressure from afar, but that doesn't necessarily translate to having a ton of eliminations to be able to chow GKS, because you came into this final game in third place with 43 points, 21 points away from GKS.
You know who else was rivaling GKS? We talked about him earlier. The Tripods, who have chosen once again to play for the edge of the map, to look for the kills they know are necessary to take on GKS, who, by the way, take a look at your maps, are just huge filling in mod right now. They have no worries at all. The lobby is eliminating itself.
Donut Shop, who was in Big Mod, rotated around to Grandma's house, which gave GKS a free rotate from the south, an uncontested choke point to Geyser, and LBJ has fallen. But another engagement for the Tripods that gets extended out just a little longer than we would like to see, and Nick Merckx, while he does able to get a knock onto one, gets traded out because he has found himself just so deep into the engagement, which makes things tough, especially when there's multiple teams surrounding here.
Yeah, it's a really nice call to use the gravity lift as well, since Tripods had called out the third party. Chatamus Prime watched this happen, but still have to fight their way into the next ring. This is now round 2, and a team that was already running low on meds has Southpaw by necessity popping syringes that he cannot cancel, with no promise of a ring any closer. You have to, at this point, be right next to S2, who we last saw guarding choke in Geyser, to stop taking damage from the zone, and that, I'm sorry, doesn't seem possible for Chatamus Prime. We're likely moving down to 13 squads.
Rather unfortunate. I saw a member of Tripods go down as well, so they're running into resistance, trying to get back into the zone. 9 lives engaging as well, but Oversleepers, Cruz, trying their best, only able to recover 1 banner thus far.
Does this Phoenix kit go off? I think it just might, but it's going to be real close. 8 syringes, however, does give them a little bit of a better possibility of survival. S2 continue to gatekeep over at Geyser, but Donut Shop go down. GKS perhaps not breathing a sigh of relief, since Donut Shop wasn't anywhere close to them, but I'm sure they're pretty darn happy about that. And it means that fighting's going on over at Grandma's house, as you indicated earlier, Tiff.
Yeah, they don't necessarily need to do anything out of the ordinary. GKS had that free rotation. They can just bide their time, kind of watch the kill feed, watch their positioning, and play their own game, which has been the freest game they've had thus far. And S2 needs so many eliminations and a win to even make the move on to GKS. And honestly, they need to evict GKS from this lobby. But in the meantime, S2, who were playing that choke point, they get the whiff of a team and they just go crazy, expending utility and just encompassing their prey and completely eviscerating Icon.
9 lives, unfortunately, won't continue in this game either, as they expire at almost exactly the same time. Just over 10 squads left, and S2 are fulfilling the requirements to challenge GKS at the top. GKS don't have kills yet. S2 have picked quite a few up, and while placement points have started to pile in, there's more than ample opportunity for S2 to continue picking up kills, especially on this lone member of Tripods. They're just going to waltz on up to them.
They're basically about to hand S2 a elimination on a platter, but Deeds is going to put up an engagement for them. Not going to be taken so easily. Able to get the shield crack on one, gets the knock, throws the thermite, see if they can double down. Meanwhile, Evolution has found Chatamus Prime's last member, and Deeds have to focus on playing his life, which is not necessarily what you want if you were aiming to unseat GKS here in the final game. But alas, our first bit of action for GKS.
And they get full sent by boys. In fact, Sorcerer and Sleepy both almost lose their shields, but GKS are playing things on the back foot, not getting over aggressive. Sleepy again gets chunked out. The boys are back and they're looking for kills. Sorcerer does play defense. R99 connects for a lot of damage, but has it been enough? Chaotic right behind. Chaotic on the monster flank doesn't make it happen. GKS are down, and it's anyone's game.
Boys, open the door for S2 to make a stand and unseat GKS. We saw tripods fall. Smoke break fell earlier, and with GKS, you can see it right now. S2 will likely pick up their pace because they're going to get a little bit of a tidbit of information by peeking at that kill feed and say, oh my god, they're down and out. We play our game, get that win. There is a finite chance that we can make this happen.
Now, it is going to be an extraordinarily difficult road for S2, and it's prime that you call out that they need to pick up their pace of game, of kills, of everything, because they only have 3 kills so far, and placement points still came in for GKS, putting them at likely around almost 70 points. The difference now almost 30 between S2 and them. So S2 need to collect almost half of the kills left in this game to put themselves in a competitive position up against GKS. It'll be a race to the top.
They would have to be perfect from here on out, and we've got that map towards our right side. They need to take this engagement with running late and just completely body them and barrel forward. They're taking space throughout this building. They have zone, but you can't just sit in a building and play towards the end game and let those eliminations come when you need that many.
Pen 5, 1 elimination, certainly, for somebody. I'm not sure who it's going to be, but Presley won't have much say in the matter. Will be sliding down almost directly into the waiting arms of S2, as this zone will play out slightly differently. S2 will also likely have to take on Gucky, who lie out just to their east, in order to have access to a safe place from which to play the next zone. Meanwhile, Evolution, as a duo, going to have to make the push of their lives. Running late has just gone down.
At the hands of S2 at that. So doing what they need to do. Now we need to focus on what is next for S2. We're down to 6 squads. So if you take away the 3 from S2, there are 11 potential kill points for them in this lobby.
Down slides Presley. Will they spot it? You got to imagine that S2 have got their ears dialed in. And Carter, at the very least, has hung back. Presley not going unnoticed. Remember, Gucky also very much going to be a problem and likely the biggest gatekeeper of S2's eventual path to victory, as these two teams will have to fight 3 versus 3 with the possibility of third parties.
And Evolution now has to leave the tunnel and will push forward, so we have to see what's going to happen. A team has already expended a Dark Veil to kind of shake up their rotation, but finding this one little nook that they can just body stack on and throw nades. No one wants to push out to where they are, but it will be Gucky that tries to make a play for this and takes out Evolution.
That's 2 KP that S2 can no longer grab. Only 9 left for them, and 9 would be plenty. Put them in a fantastic position. It is going to be very close, these leaderboards, and Gucky know that, S2 know that, but by the same token, every point that Gucky get will push them further up the leaderboard, will put them in a better place for the end of the preseason qualifiers. So they got to take what they can get, especially as you're not sure how many more times you'll be able to end up in the finals. Oversleepers go down. Gucky with a Kraber could find even more kills. Just 4 squads left.
This is tough, right? All these eliminations are just going to other teams. Those at the hands went to boys, and Gucky kind of spreading out, but the boys spread it out on the other side, trying to take up as much space of this final zone that they can make happen. And it's S2 who have nestled themselves in the building and have not been able to find any other eliminations aside from what they already have. With the top right of your screen, you can see 2 kills for Carter and 2 assists. So at least we know they have 4 KP at the very minimum.
They're looking for more because Second place doesn't get you to Pro League. Only first does. The kill on Presley does go over to S2, but now the 3v3 that will decide this game. S2 have to deal with either Boys or Gucky, and they need every single kill in this lobby. They need both 3v3s to go their way, but now they've got to pick one.
To get all 6 of the KP available to them in this lobby would have to be near perfect execution, because you know for a fact that that third team will start putting pressure on and could,
Going for Boys,
by chance, pick that up. They are going to isolate the team to their left and focus on to the Boys. Yes, they get a shield crack. And honestly, Gucky just biding their time and not extending out, this could be the way for them to make it happen. And as soon as I say that, Vermilion getting a little antsy over there on the northern side.
just wanted to lay out a little bit of presence, knows that there's an entire Catalyst wall separating them, and Vermilion could even get some kills here. Carter gets sandwiched, manages to get a bat off in time, but without S2 having been able to dedicate all of their resources to one side, they haven't taken out Boys, they haven't taken out Gucky. Carter is going to Hail Mary the play, lands directly on the Pharaoh Fluid, and S2 have Sosei propping them up, looking for any KP, but they can't find it. Gucky sends them. Sosei still clutches taking out Baguk, but the Boys come in from the side. S2 go down. They don't even make the top 3, but Boys take the win. They take out GKS, and they certainly had a great game to close PSQ2.
They needed to do everything that it was going to take to find those eliminations, and S2 gave it all they had, but it was Boys finding themselves in 19th place outside of the top 10, outside the top 15, but they get that coveted win in the final match of the day. Congratulations to them, because that will shoot them up the leaderboard nonetheless and give them even more of those preseason qualifier points that they can start couple through the rest of the week.
That was so good. I was worried because Boys, in their first finals appearance, only made 17th, but being able to pick up that win, rocketing them past 19th, I mean, looking at the scores, it'll probably put them somewhere in that 11th, 12th, 13th spot, perhaps a bit higher, but it's a great place to be. 2 finals appearances, and an even better one for Boys this time, with commanding team fights, and I think a real sense of purpose where they were lacking some in the even last games of last week. Now, we're starting to see the squad come together. I'm excited to see them in future weeks, but Tiff, we do have one champion to crown, one team that is punching their ticket. It did get pretty close. I'm pretty confident, but we're going to have to see who it was, because while both teams fought their absolute hardest, GKS going out early still manages to clinch the win. They're going to be going on to the Pro League, and as we said, from retirement, from E8, and from the preseason qualifier gods themselves, drug-free, we've got 3 extremely talented players to be sending forward to make their own run at Pro League once more.
And it makes me so excited, right? I was a little nervous throughout kind of maps 2 and 3, but things really got kicked into gear once GKS won that massive game in map number 4. And from there was nothing else anyone in the lobby could do. Even S2 made a valiant effort in map 6. It just wasn't enough. So congratulations to GKS. Congratulations on Pro League. Now you can rest easy knowing that you don't have to compete in the final 2 preseason qualifiers.
I'm very excited to see where this team goes. With Sauce at the helm, Sleepy Panda has been IGLing for Team Diverge for so long. Took that break, took the retirement as we talked about, but with Chaotic fresh out of a, I think, really good season despite the results of Pro League, still actually managed to make an impression on every pro player. There's a lot of not only mechanics, but great decision-making and legacy talent on this team. So GKS, of course, taking the #1 spot. We'll bring up the leaderboards and talk about the teams that perhaps didn't quite make it, but were ever so close. S2, first and foremost on that list.
Yeah, that would have just been such a crazy ending for them to wipe up all the kills they needed in that final game. But GKS making it so far in that lobby and having such an easy early to mid game, were able to get just enough points to be able to really extend that. So once again, congratulations, S2, Smoke Break, Tripods, Gucky, rounding out that top 5, tied with Team Smiley in 6th there at 44 points. Some great preseason qualifier points will be attributed to them. And a lot of you may be asking, the points that you see on the board are not necessarily the points that they're going to get. If you get
It's a
second,
different
you get
system.
1440 points, third 1410. So it's completely different. I'd advise you to kind of look into it. Apex Liquipedia can also offer a lot of information behind that if you don't want to really read all the rules and the handbooks, because,
Battlefy. Battlefy
Battlefy
as
too.
well. Yeah,
I do.
big for them. I do want to call out Smoke Break because we talked about Sleepy Panda, who is, as we said, just qualified to Pro League with GKS. Smoke Break, first appearance in the finals, and Stumps, also having played for Team Diverge in the
Yep.
past. He and Sleepy Panda, former teammates. Another big legacy talent who came back and has made third place in their first appearance in the finals during this preseason qualifiers. So plenty to look forward to there as the boys continue to step up, rocketing their way up to 8. Penn 5 with a performance in 9th, and Denver Thuggets making waves, especially during Storm Point, even as they dropped down over the course of the next couple of games on World's Edge to 10th. Lots to look forward to there, and we could go on and on about these teams, about these players, because it's what we love. It's why we're here, especially when it's so late for you, Tiff. But it is that late for you. So I want to say a big thank you to all of our teams for participating, to the players, and to all of you for tuning in. Our production staff behind the scenes has been working all day tirelessly to bring you not just this stream, but the map stream that is a new addition, as Versus will continually be innovating on ways to bring you not just PSQs, but Challenger Circuit in the coming season. So, from all of us here, from all day, thank you so much, and we will see you next week for the following preseason quals.